The story begins in a building under construction. A boy looks at his cell phone while others work, wondering if he has failed again. He's reviewing the results of a job interview where they praised his talent but couldn't proceed with him. At that moment, someone calls him Macme, meaning the youngest person there. The boss asks if he's slacking off at work. He replies he's finished everything, but another guy accuses him of lying, until he sees the boy has painted the entire wall. The boss confirms he's not slacking and asks how he works so well with just 1 year of experience. The boy explains he's been working in places like this since graduation and claims the guy would do well if he didn't drink daily. The chubby guy warns him to be careful speaking to older people, and the boy resumes painting when the guy suggests they go for a smoke. At that moment, he feels something strange. The friend asks what's wrong with his back. He says it's nothing serious, okay?
Dealing with chronic back pain that hasn't gone away for about 6 months. All because of a day when he had to carry a panel. With that, the workday comes to an end. The boss tells the chubby guy to take over Taeseok's work, to which he asks why. He says it's obvious since the boy is doing everything he should be doing. The chubby guy responds that the boss is sucking up to Taeseok, and he says it's obvious that he's doing it since the boy is hardworking. At that moment, he asks if the protagonist's back is okay, to which he says yes and thanks him for his concern. The boss then asks if he doesn't want to go back to working with carpentry. Embarrassed, our boy responds that right now he can't handle heavy work. The boss says he can go home and rest then, or he can join them for a beer. Our boy only responds that he has to go to the doctor to get more medication. With that, he takes a taxi. Because of his condition, he can't work without painkillers. He's done a bunch of interviews at various companies. However, he still hasn't landed a decent job. People won't even accept an interview since his resume is always rejected, and currently, he finds himself at a dead end, at Hanwha Medical Hospital. Lately, Taeseok has been applying for various administrative jobs because he obviously can't work using physical strength anymore. His strength is diminishing every day due to this herniated disc. The doctor presses on his back and he immediately screams. The doctor warns him that his nerves between the 4th and 5th vertebrae are only getting worse, so he can no longer continue with this kind of hard labor. Taeseok tries to explain that he can't make money any other way. The doctor tells him to stop being childish and to find a better place quickly. Otherwise, he'll end up like his father. He remembers that his father died on a construction site 13 years ago. It was a fatal accident from which he had no chance of surviving. The original contractor put all the blame on the company that hired the workers, and the president of that company disappeared without addressing the situation. With the help of a private organization, they managed to receive $20,000 in compensation. At that moment, the doctor asks what his mother would think if she knew he was working like this. Even though the painkillers eased the pain, his problems were only getting worse. Taeseok tries to explain that there's no other place that pays as well as this one. The doctor puts his hand on his face and says he's at a loss for words. He shouts that if Taeseok continues acting this way, he shouldn't come back there. He tells the nurse to show him the way out. Taeseok says he hasn't even paid yet. However, the doctor just tells him not to pay and also not to return there. With that, the doctor takes out his cell phone. He transfers $2,000 to the protagonist's account. He collapses in his chair, wondering why someone named Harijang met this boy and lived a sad life. Taeseok goes to one of the other rooms in the hospital. In one of the beds, he sits next to a sick woman. He asks if his mother is feeling better. She says she's been much better lately since he's been taking such good care of her, and asks why he sent that money. He has no idea what she's talking about, but she shows him that she received $1,500. In fact, the doctor sent it in Taeseok's name to his mother's account. And now he's confused and has no idea if it was his uncle, the guy from work, the doctor, or who sent it. She asks how work is going, and he says it's great because everyone treats him well. She says she can see that her son has been working hard. If that's the case, she has to beat that illness too. Our boy asks if she's tired and says it's okay for her to sleep. She says it doesn't matter since she's always tired and wanted to take advantage of the fact that he was there. He tells her not to worry about that because he'll sleep next to her, and when she wakes up, they can talk. With that, she thanks him. Our boy then falls asleep on the hospital bench. She gets up and covers him, saying that he still has that silly, innocent air. In some ways, it reminded her of her husband, and the smell couldn't hide the fact that he was also working at a construction site. She said he didn't need to hide all of this just for himself because she was going to beat that illness too, and that she knows very well how he feels and will always be grateful to him. The next day, at the same construction site, the crew arrives for another day of work. The boss greets Taeseok and questions Cholsum and the chubby guy about why he hasn't taken a bath. He apologizes, saying he drank a lot last night, and the boss tells him just to be careful and not to cause trouble with Cholsum's workers. With that, he tells Taeseok to sit down and have a coffee. He asks how the boy is doing, who responds that he's neither better nor worse, just the same as always. The boss then asks if he wants to go back to working as a carpenter. Taeseok tries to explain that it would be very difficult for him to do that. The boss replies that he knows his family is going through a tough time, so he should work as a carpenter and earn much more. Taeseok says he knows that, but his back won't hold up. The boss then tells him to stay quiet since he doesn't want to do it. Our boy already knows that it wasn't this manager who sent the money to him. That guy seems to only care for him because he's good at his job, but he's not the type to help him personally. He concludes that the person who sent the money to his mother was a certain Uncle Hanwoo. He calls the guy to thank him, but he responds confused. Taeseok says it's him and asks if it was the guy who sent the money to his mother, who says yes. Our boy says he'll repay the favor, but the guy just asks if he's still working at a construction site. As soon as he responds that he is, he gets scolded. The guy tells him to leave that kind of place or he'll end up dying there too. He should look for another job as soon as possible. Our boy pats his back saying that this guy is always like that. But then he sees something on his phone. The opportunity he'd been waiting for after 200 attempts. They had finally appeared. He had a job interview the next day because he passed the first stage of recruitment for the Elson group. However, at that very moment, a window pops up. Our boy is confused and it says his wish had been granted. Our boy was confused, wondering what that was all about. What was this talk about a granted wish? He tried to touch it, but his hand just passed through it. The strangest thing was that it didn't disappear either, and he wondered if he was going crazy. However, the window changed and said he had unlocked the path to becoming a permanent employee at the Elson group, and asked if he wanted to start the tutorial. He called out to a guy next to him and asked if he wanted a cigarette, but that one was the last. He asked another one if by any chance he was seeing a small window floating there in front of him. The guy immediately asked how he had the nerve to come to work drunk like that. Our boy apologizes and says that's not really it. He runs out of there knowing that no one else could see it besides him. He goes to the bathroom and looks at himself in the mirror, asking why. The window also had no reflection. Now he doesn't know if he's going crazy or dreaming. He wants to work at Elson, but what is this tutorial business? This conversation sounds like something that would happen in a light novel, but it's not that easy for him to understand. However, his dream is to get into a big company, so he says he'll activate this tutorial. And with that, the permanent employee mission begins. However, the system warns that if he quits halfway through the year, he will lose all memories since the beginning of it. He's confused about how something could erase his memory, and the system says he will receive a written evaluation and a personality analysis. He was a little confused. The system seemed to be taking everything very seriously. However, since he was there, he was going to see this madness through the end. He then receives the occupation of job seeker, and there's a skill called Elson Group that would allow him to see the eyes of someone who recruits there. He wonders what this business is about seeing the eyes of someone who recruits. He feels a bit dizzy, saying that at least he'll have to test this. The system warns that it would allow him to detect potential problems in the evaluation. However, prolonged use would decrease his physical strength. He decides at least to take a look to see if this is real or not. He goes to a bookstore with a crazy idea. He doesn't know if the skill works or not, so he's going to use it on some evaluator books to see if he can get any kind of insight into what he needs to develop. He thinks again about how to use the skill, and screams in his head to activate the unemployed's eyes, but nothing happens. He stares at the books to see if anything appears. However, the thing doesn't seem to respond, until the little window appears. It warns that this skill only works inside the Elson Group's building. He gets angry, saying that this thing is full of conditions. However, he has a clever idea and buys some job books at the store, and goes back to his work area at the Elson Group. When he activated it, some parts of the books started to get highlighted. With that, he spent the entire night memorizing those problems and solving those questions. And then the day of the exam arrived. The system warned that he would have to wear a proper suit. However, the poor guy was struggling to contain his anxiety. But he wasn't going to give up, and so even under the hot sky, he was there reading the books and learning the material. On the way to the test, he tried his best to memorize everything he had read. He was annoyed at this system that talked too much, but it actually helped. When he arrived, the girl told him to go to the second floor, and that's when he saw them commenting. The system informed him that he had passed the dress code requirement. Even though the letter inviting him to the interview said to wear casual clothes, the system was right to tell him to wear a suit. This group is gigantic and controls various areas of counters. It makes sense that they have such a difficult selection process. With that, he goes to the personality test room, and as he imagined, is full of people and extremely competitive. Everyone there is extremely anxious and insecure about it. There was a huge difference between those who bought the wrong books and those who studied correctly and knew what to answer for each question. At that moment, a woman enters and calls everyone. She introduces herself as Kim Jungmi and says she's been working there since 2017. The guy next to her introduces himself as Kang Minyo and says he's there to help with the personality test. He says that some people live nearby and some far away and asks if anyone had difficulty getting to this location. Someone immediately raises their hand. They say they came from a distant city and ask if they would be reimbursed for their transportation costs. Taesol thinks it's crazy to ask something like that, and he immediately receives a message that the girl had failed the test. Man, this thing is too realistic. and the worst part is that it works like that in the real world too. The people in front respond that this year they won't, but they'll consider it for next year. They already note her name down and ask if anyone else wants to ask something. Our protagonist knows that nothing should be asked there since they'll judge anything you say. The guy then says they can stop there, and tells everyone they can start writing their answers. Our boy is reading, and he's all excited because he knew it from start to finish. At the pace he was going, he literally just needed to write and would get everything right. Or maybe he should get some wrong. There were 200 questions with a 30-minute time limit. Only 1 minute left to submit, and Taesiak said he wasn't going to hold back. If he received this ability, it was meant to be used. He was going to get everything right from start to finish. The scene shifts to someone calling his name. In a restaurant, someone asks why he didn't go to work yesterday. It's Uncle Sung who wants to know if he happened to find a girlfriend or what he's up to. Our boy pretends that he seems to have a girlfriend indeed. That's because he doesn't want to admit that he went to interview for another company. The boss laughs, saying that those who earn money the hard way really need to have some fun. He shouldn't worry, they would talk to the manager so it wouldn't be a problem for him. Taesiak thinks that if it weren't for the problem with his back, maybe he could continue working there. However, at that moment, something catches his attention. The window showing he had passed the personality test appears. Man, getting a job in Korea must be really hard if the guy stands up just for passing the first stage. But it informs him that he will have to prepare for the interview. And of course, its mission appears. Man, it wasn't even an in-person interview, it was still an online interview. Since it was a stressful event, he was going to have to tell his boss what happened today. Our boy is in shock because talking to the director won't be easy at all. The reward was unknown, and if he failed, he would be sent to another construction site. At that moment, the phone of the friend in front of him rings. The director asks if Taesiak is there with him and tells him to send him over. The guy says okay, he'll let him know. Our boy gets up and says he knows he has to talk to the manager. The guy is impressed that he has the courage. Taesiak responds that the person who pays him, so he can't avoid the guy. And he was motivated since the system said he needed to go through a stressful event, and he was going after it. The scene shifts to him entering the office. The guy is just staring at him without saying anything, and says he's been thinking a lot about his situation. Starting tomorrow, he should go back to working as a carpenter. Taesiak says he doesn't think it's right to do that all of a sudden, but the boss says he's too young to be just working as a painter and shouldn't continue doing that. Our boy tries to explain that working as a painter is enough for him for now. The boss says he can find another painter quickly, but the only carpenter he knows is standing right in front of him. Taesiak didn't want to keep hearing that, but how was he going to respond? However, the little mission activates. He should listen to the director's story to the end, talk calmly, and show empathy. Our boy kept looking. Obviously, he wasn't at all interested in doing something like that, but he asked the boss to calm down and explain the situation better. The man says there's no carpenter on the second floor, so they won't be able to finish on time with the contract. If that happens, he'll lose millions just because of a few days, and he asks if the boy really won't help him. Taesiak knows he's the only one who stands to lose in this negotiation. However, he had no choice but to somehow agree. The man says he's begging and that it would only be for a few days or weeks. Our boy says at most for a week. The boss's face changes instantly, and he says he knew he could count on him. He narrowly avoided being sent to another construction site. That's because lately he seemed very stressed and wasn't enjoying working there. However, now he's glad he didn't fire the boy. He really saved him this time. He says he just had to make a quick call. He calls the boss and says everything will be resolved in at most a week. Our boy is just off to the side listening. A while later, when he's working, the boss calls him and tells him to come down from the ladder. He tells him to meet the manager from the Elson group. He comes down and introduces himself, saying it's a pleasure to meet the man. The man says his name is Choi Kidong and thanks him for his hard work. He thought the project wouldn't be completed on time, but thanks to him, he's very relieved. Our boy says it's good to be able to help while thinking that his back has been hurting more than ever this week. The man suggests they should celebrate by having a drink and invites Taesiak too. However, our boy apologizes, saying he has a doctor's appointment tonight. The scene changes to everyone at the hospital being shocked. The doctor is scolding Taesiak, saying he told him not to go back to that job. Our boy asks him to go easy on him because it hurts a lot. The doctor tells him to go to the second floor and get some physical therapy. Our boy knew the day of the interview was coming and he just needed to hold on a little longer. The scene shifts to him in a suit introducing himself as Kim Taesiak, and then he's surprised. The man he refused to go out for a drink with yesterday is standing right in front of him. He responds that it seems like this is the first time they're meeting and tells him to sit down. The interview was about to start, and he was going to call on Taesiak. But just as he was about to respond, someone said to wait a moment, and they mentioned they wanted to comment on something first. They asked a guy named Kang Minwoo to stand up. He then pointed out that the guy was wearing black pants and white socks, and asked what he thought about that. Minwoo responded that he indeed made a mistake with the combination. Man, is the guy going to lose the job because he wore white socks? Next time, he'll go barefoot. Our boy knew that this was called the pressure zone that the system had warned him about. Kodakidong says it seems he knows about etiquette, but still dressed like that and wants to know why. That room was designed to chew on people's emotions and reveal their true nature. The boss asked why he wasn't responding, and he said he didn't know why. Choi Kidong asked if he didn't know how he felt or if he didn't know how to control his emotions. Manhwa remained silent, telling himself that he was being tested on patience and all he had to do was not respond. However, Choi Kidong was evaluating something else. He had already noticed that the guy was vulnerable to stress and couldn't even communicate under pressure. Moreover, he seemed unable to respond to different situations. He put a bunch of X next to the boy's name and told him to sit down. Thank God I'm a YouTuber because I would have failed this interview miserably. He then called on a girl named Choi Yuni. He questioned why she had no experience and had never even worked a part-time job. Embarrassed, she said she was focusing on her studies. The man responded that it seems she's only good at studying, but that's not exactly what they're looking for. He told her to speak up properly and asked if she would treat customers like that. Man, the girl was destroyed with 3 words. Even I wouldn't hire her. Another CEO noticed that Choi Kidong had changed the order of the questions for another reason. He gave the boy time to prepare for the pressure of that interview, and so he called his name. All bright and shiny, he stood up with that slice system at his side, motivated, thinking that if he's come this far, he won't be eliminated for nothing. Choi Kidong asked which university he attended. He replied that he got his diploma through the credit system. It's a system where you can earn credits in various different classes and then trade them for almost a diploma. The man asks if he really never attended university, and our boy replies that's exactly the case. The man asks what he means by exactly. Was there something he didn't know? But the sly guy wasn't going to give up. He had to be honest and show his life. The goal was in some way to move those people's hearts. So he says that he had to earn money. The man says it's the same in the company and asks if he really dropped out of university just to earn money. Taeseok responds that yes, he did, but he doesn't regret it. He worked on construction sites during the day, and at night he studied to earn his diploma with the credits. He had never neglected his life. Even though he hadn't gone to university like the others, he studied as much as he could and received a certificate as a computer technician, famously known as the It King. He says he did everything he could to get the diploma through the system, while still earning money during the day. The boss seems impressed, gives a small smile, and says he understands. He glances at the other guy, who murmurs about what he understood. With that, he turns to Taeseok and asks how far he thinks he can go with the Elsun group. In theory, this was supposed to be a tough question, but he had already thought about it. He knows exactly why he wants to work for a big company. All he doesn't want is to have to depend on his body to earn money anymore. To pay his mother's hospital bills and not have to worry so much about things. He would do anything to achieve that. So he says he would do everything necessary as long as it doesn't break the law and is allowed by social norms. The man asks why he's so concerned with laws and social norms. The clever guy knows the right answer is to say it would ruin the company's image. He supports the group's credibility and honesty with the public. Our boy knows he's not being 100% honest. However, the important thing is to convince those bastards. That's the only purpose of this interview. The man says they can move on to the next question, and asks if he has a girlfriend. All awkward. He says no, and the man asks why. This Forever Alone says he doesn't know any girls. If he knew of any good prospects, they could introduce him because he's looking to meet someone. The guys laugh and say the boy's a clown. Man, I had almost forgotten the other 2 suckers were there on the side. The man smiles and says everyone can leave. The scene shifts back to the construction site. The boss calls for Taeseok. Our boy recognizes him and says hello to the team leader, who thanks him, saying it's good to see him back there. Our boy asks if everything was okay while he was gone. The man says that as soon as he left, things didn't go well. Our boy already imagines what happened. As usual, Chulsung must have caused some accident. At least he always comes to work, so eventually he'll get skilled. The man says they're going to have a company dinner and tells everyone to go. Our boy explains that team leader Kim Dong invited him to a dinner too. The man gets curious about why the team leader invited him. He was going to say it was because they worked together for a week and the boss cursed. But then a little window appeared. He should attend that company dinner and listen to the guys. The reward was unknown, but there was no penalty. He was confused. It was the first time there was a mission without a penalty. He had an idea and asked the boss what was being served today. The man said, obviously, it was grandma's soup. Taeseok then says he'll go with the other team leader because the guy is paying for meat for everyone. The guy celebrates, saying that eating meat is definitely better than that little soup. The boss says that's fine. They'll change the plans and go eat some meat. With that, the scene shifts to everyone toasting. And the boss says that lately things have been very frustrating. His brother has been working as a gas engineer for about 20 years. And even so, his salary is less than $4,000. That's why he didn't bother studying. All those papers are useless. The chubby guy tells him to stop lying. He knows he didn't want to study so he could have fun with the girls. Taeseok is all goofy, just laughing, saying that it seems like everyone's drunk. However, in the end, they weren't lying about anything. The treatment for the people working on this kind of construction site is never easy. And with that, the night passes. A whole week flies by. Our boy is on his way to an interview, and the man asks why he didn't show up again. Embarrassed, he says he's sure he informed them about it. The boss says he should come because he doesn't feel like working. However, our boy just apologizes and hangs up the call. At that moment, the woman calls the boy who passed the first interview and tells him to go to the debate room. There would be a group of 10 people, and he would have to follow the moderator's instructions. Oh man, is this discord. There, they would discuss why Korea spends so much on education compared to other countries. At the moment, with everyone there, the man says that if anyone wants to make a point, they should raise their hand. Our boy feels he has the advantage because he has real-life experience, and he thanks the leader for teaching him so much. The man says they can prepare. The interview debate was about to begin. Man, this first job is really tough. The pressure is real. Then number 2 is called, and guess whose turn it is? Actually, I don't know because now he called number 3, a guy named Park In-soo, who says he understands that sometimes Korea spends a lot on human resources. However, that's why they became one of the top 10 world powers. Even though it's expensive, they need to continue training talent. Man, Artesiak thought this guy was amazing. So dumb he was. The question was about the cost being too high and how they would resolve it. However, he had no idea what he was talking about and responded with something unrelated. Another girl next to him introduces herself as Choi Yuni. She said that her family spent 300 million won to send her to school and believes that's because there are too few people in the country. They needed more support so people could have children. Our boy is just observing. The interviewer agrees and says that as families are getting smaller, the costs are now focused on a single individual, which is why they're higher. Maybe encouraging people is the best approach. Taeseok knows that's a good solution. But why would a company care about that when they're not a public institution? He then says he's number 2, Taeseok, and wants to present a different perspective. There goes the sly one, stealing the system's ideas, huh? Everyone is watching attentively. He explains that universities there are expensive and people don't always get the jobs they need. They should create a system like in Germany, where all areas of education are valued. Unlike here, where only technology is sought after. With that, they wouldn't rely so much on foreign labor for manual jobs. The people seem surprised that he came to this conclusion. And a guy with glasses says he wants to ask something. Was number 2 criticizing Korea? Our boy is a bit confused. He didn't think anyone would ask something so aggressive, especially since that's not what he said. He says these were just speculations on how to improve the national system and not a criticism of the current one. But the guy responds that Korea has incredible students who manage to succeed even in other countries. So how could they not be better than Germany? The interviewer asks for the name of number 10. He says his name is Yoon Sukum. The man congratulates him and tells him to leave the room. The poor guy is confused, and the interviewer says that he doesn't fit what they're looking for in the company. That was a test about harmony and seeing who can cooperate with others. But Sukum showed a bad attitude of someone who likes to put others down to succeed. Considering what the company was looking for, he was the worst recruit. With that, the fool left, and he deserved it. Although in reality, it's never like that, right? The man then says they'll now talk about reforming the national pension. And with that, time passed, and they discussed various topics. It seemed like there was a discussion going on, and in 25 minutes, they hadn't reached any conclusion. What the protagonist couldn't understand was why the man didn't end the subject. And judging by his expression, he was sure the man seemed frustrated. So to ease things, he called everyone and said they needed to reach a conclusion. He said it would be good for everyone to express their opinion once more and then they could vote. The interviewer was interested since he seemed to have taken responsibility for that. This was the kind of sly person he wanted in the company. With that, he thanked everyone for their good work and said they could all go home, saying that this boy, Kim Taeseok, had passed so far. However, outside, our boy heard someone shouting that it was unfair. It was that guy from before yelling at the interviewer who had left the room. Our boy never imagined there would be people who wouldn't accept the result like that. But when he looked again, the interviewer was green and the guy was yelling. He was confused and started to wonder what was going on. Then he noticed something strange in that room. Each person seemed to have a different color, and that's when he came to 2 conclusions after that experience. When he blinks 3 times in a row, he activates his unemployed ability, and people are then seen in different colors. But the poor guy still has no idea what that represents. But there he is, back at the construction site. He received another message. The final interview was scheduled for tomorrow, and they wished him good luck. Man, this boy is celebrating, and after 5 or 6 chapters, even I want this kid to get the job. He was very excited. He just had to pass this to reach his dream. A little later, talking to Uncle Sung, he was told that he should apply more paint before starting to paint to speed up the work. The chubby guy dumped the roller in the bucket and walked away, shaking it all around. Obviously, that wasn't going to end well, and our boy's entire face was about to get painted white. With that, the friend just apologized. But man, our boy had turned into a big ice cream cone and said it was okay. He wasn't going to fight with a guy who had clearly done something by accident. The guy apologized because he knew he was helping, and our boy said again that it was okay. He was just going to take a shower. That's when the leader saw him painted and was startled. Our boy said that kind of thing happens. He was just going to take a shower quickly. The boss said that his house was far, so if he wanted, he could use the bathroom downstairs. Our boy asked if everyone wasn't going to get mad at him for that. He said no, so he thanked him and went on his way. Already going down the stairs, feeling all uncomfortable. But what can he do? He has to take a shower. This company is actually pretty good. Look at that nice shower. Man, I know it was just a shower, But when he went to the bathroom, there was an old man there, who asked what he was doing there, and our boy said he worked on the construction site. The man said it's a tough job and mentioned that he saw when he got splashed with paint. Our boy says it's fine and asks if the old man is the owner there. The man says he can't really call himself the owner, more like a shareholder. Impressed, our boy says it seems like something really good and asks if he earns well there. The man says yes, he earns enough, but nothing to be envied. Our boy says it looks like the old man works hard, and the old man compliments him as well. Out of nowhere, the old man dives into the water, and our boy asks why he doesn't get back up. Had he fainted? Calling out to the old man, he asks what happened. But as soon as he jumps in to help the man, the old man stands up and asks if he was afraid that the old guy had died. Our boy, confused, asks what that was all about, and the old man says he has a superstition. He needed to dive into that place to wash away all the sweat from his body. Our boy says he understands while still a bit confused by this craziness, but says the old man seems motivated and pretty healthy for his age. To which the old man responds that he always tries to exercise to stay active. Our boy says he admires that and mentions he has to get back to work. He wishes the old man well and tells him to keep taking care of his health. The old man thanks him and wishes him well too. A while later, he's on his way out, and a man enters the room from where he came from in the back. That man is the president of the company, right? And the other man says there are 40 minutes left until the final ceremony and asks if he's going. President Kim Chang-mo had a superstition. He had to take a bath in each of the new constructions. Otherwise, there would be an accident at them within a year. He hesitates and asks if everything will go well this year. Meanwhile, our boy is heading home exhausted, when a window appears saying that all he has to do is show up and he'll pass the test. However, that answer was strangely easy, and he started to suspect something. But the system told him he had to trust it. However, our boy decided to prepare even though the system said that. That night, he memorized everything that had happened and everything that had already happened at the Elsun company. And the next day was the executive interview. He arrived with a determined look and introduced himself as Taziok from the system. The guy said, "This is the guy," and told him to sit down. Our boy was confident since the system told him not to worry. But even so, he couldn't let his guard down. With that, he blinked 3 times to activate the unemployed eye. And strangely, this time the guys range from purple to dark blue. The man starts looking at the resume and says he's looking for any job, but it seems he didn't go to college. He turns to the guy next to him and says the boy doesn't have any education, who responds that it seems like he can still look for a position. The man says it must be one of those resumes you basically get from the government. Another boss looks at the guy next to him and says to bring his evaluation sheet. However, he's shocked to see that he got the highest score in all stages of the interview. Not even the people from the best universities were competing with the boy. The guy next to him says the code name for that boy is SSET. That was a way of saying he was a relative or descendant of the president, or someone who was only there because they had some personal connection. Trembling, the man asks what kind of job this guy is looking for. He responds that an office job would be good, but he'll do his best regardless of what he gets. The man says, "Okay then, you can leave." Our boy is shocked, asks if he heard that correctly. The guys respond yes and thank him for his hard work. As he leaves, they keep wondering if he's the CEO of the company or related to the president. Maybe this whole thing about him coming from a poor family was just to have that story of someone who started from the bottom. Fortunately, the interview team knew the details and gave him the highest scores to ensure they let him through. Otherwise, they almost made a big mistake. The scene changes to a man asking his son if he failed the interview. He slams the table and says that even though he knew all the questions, he still managed to be a disgrace to the family. The boy clenches his fist and apologizes. He just wanted his father to give him one more chance. To which the father responds that he understood, but he better do it right this time. The poor boy is just trembling his hands. The father asks if he understood, and he says yes. Back at the construction site, our boy can't take his eyes off his phone. He received a message that he had passed, but he was feeling kind of empty because it had been too easy. The HR group already sent a message saying he would need to undergo a physical exam of the hospitals. Now he's worried, right? With no spine. And he's already starting to get anxious that his back might prevent him from getting the job. The scene then shifts to the hospital. He enters the room and asks for permission. The doctor recognizes Taziok and asks if his back is hurting again. He says that's not the reason today. The man then asks what it's about. He explains that he passed the interview at a giant company. The man congratulates him, saying that finally the boy will return to being human. However, he notices that Taziok seems down and asks what's wrong. Completely worn out, our boy says it's nothing. He knew what he needed to ask that person for, but he just couldn't do it. So as always, he only asks for some painkillers, and the doctor says that's fine. But it's clear that the boy isn't happy at all. The doctor immediately recognizes that the usually confident boy seems a bit down today. Maybe he was having more problems than usual. But the doctor isn't a fool and quickly remembers that he mentioned passing the big company interview. In a place like that, after something like this, all that's left is the physical exam. So it seems the boy was afraid to ask for something like that, because if he were caught lying about his physical condition, he could have his license revoked. In the end, he was just like his father, only worrying about others. On his way out, the receptionist hands him the prescription, and he thanks her. but she says the doctor sent something else. There's a little CD there, and he wonders why that's there. As he's leaving, the doctor shouts from afar, congratulating him on his success in the interview, and says he'll have to treat them to some dinners once he starts working. Our boy, embarrassed, says he understands. Apparently, that CD had what he needed to pass the physical exam. And the next morning, what he had been waiting for finally appeared. It had finally passed and become an employee. Basically, all this to reach level 1. Man, now the game's really starting. But if it's about a game, the little window pops up. The employee store had opened, and he had 5 points to spend. That would help him solve various problems in life. And with quests, he could collect points to receive special items. The system wants to know if he wants to take a look at the store or not. Obviously, our boy says yes. And a giant panel appears. There's the sobriety pill that instantly removes all alcohol from your body. Another one that lets you see through walls for a minute. Man, that's dangerous. Not for the perverts. A little candy that keeps you from getting a hangover for 6 hours. And the charm perfume that makes you twice as attractive to the opposite sex. This system sure knows how to play the game. Our boy wants to know if this stuff is magical or real. The system asks if he wants to lose his memory, and our boy says no. With that, it says it exists to help him succeed so he can't reject it. Our boy says he understands and thanks it for the help, while thinking that this system is sassier than he imagined. He had to reassure it and say he got a better job. With that, he would receive 6 points, and if he failed, the sub-quests would be sealed. He didn't like the name of that mission, but our boy didn't seem too worried, saying he would tell her even if he wasn't asked to. With that, he heads to the hospital and knocks on the door. Thank God she's still alive. I thought she was dead. Oh my God. Already in the room, he asks how she's doing, and she says she's slowly getting better. He then tells her he was accepted into the Elson group. She recognizes the company and congratulates him on the good work. He thanks her and says she can get well soon so they can go home. With that, his mother offers an apple that her aunt brought in the morning, but he notices she's laughing and asks what's so funny. She says she's happy because her son studied hard and got into a big company. He says he understands and goes to get some knives to cut the apple. With that, the mission is completed and he earns those 6 points. However, he's confused for a moment. A submission called Mother's First Love appears. Hanwoo, that doctor, is worried about his mother, and you should ask that guy to leave the hospital. He's confused about this. That guy was also his father's best friend, but he had just over 35 minutes to complete this. Our boy knew that Hanwoo and his father had always been childhood friends. He remembered seeing this guy every time he came home. And even when his father was older, he would still fight with him to take care of his health. He knows that guy isn't married, but this is weird. However, the mission says it's his mother's first love, so that's the deal. He wanted to know if this was really true. The system says it cannot lie, and our boy wonders why he's receiving this mission then. It says all this is to help him succeed. Now he's confused, wanting to know who's behind this, but the system responds that it's not allowed to reveal that. And our boy stands there looking like a fool. He had no idea what the purpose of this thing was. He goes back to the room and his mother asks why he took so long. He says it's just because he had to take a call. She says he doesn't need to worry and can leave if he's busy. He says that's not it, and asks if she remembers an uncle named Hanwoo, and she responds by mentioning his name. Apparently, our boy is the king of facial expressions. He noticed something different in the way she said that guy Hanwoo's name. His father was already dead, so he left and said he had to make a call. He went out and pulled out his phone, obviously to call Uncle Hanwoo, who answered, asking what was up and if something had happened. Our boy just wanted to know if he still liked his mother. The man, all confused, asked what happened and if she said something. He quickly got up, wanting to know if something happened at the hospital and if she was okay. Our boy said it was room 403 and told him to come quickly, and then he just hung up. The system said he made a great choice, but he was still angry at this thing for not revealing who it was. The system didn't respond anymore, but 15 minutes later, Hanwoo was rushing into the hospital. He saw him desperately running down the corridor. This was the first time Hanwoo had seen her since his father died. The mission was completed and he collected all the points. However, after calmly thinking about it, the slightly crazy boy came to a conclusion. These actions of the system clearly weren't just about his future. And with that, he had an idea. He asked if the system had any connection to his father. The messages in that window seemed to carry too much emotion to be just a person. But in the end, everything was always to help him. Obviously, the answer was that it couldn't be answered. He felt a bit awkward when the system didn't respond at all. He was curious, but little by little, he would discover more about this. After all, there was something else to focus on for now. What was going on between Hanwoo and his mother? He went to take a peek through the window, and they were calmly talking. He had no idea what the conversation was about, but it had been a long time since he'd seen his mother and Hanwoo smiling like that. The system said it was a great choice. This system seems to be anti-widows. A little time passed. Hanwoo came out and asked if the boy was listening outside, to which he said no. He apologized for running in and our boy said it was okay. He then said he was leaving and that he could call him for anything. But the boy called out to Hanwoo and asked if he still liked his mother. Out of nowhere, the thing turns into a romance, and the doctor is left deep in thought. He looked a little embarrassed and said he didn't know much about that. But our boy didn't like that answer. He asked Han-woo if he could stay with her for 3 days, as he would be going to the company's training center. He knew it was asking a lot given that Han-woo was already sending money and also helped with the physical exam. But Han-woo just said his name, but our boy didn't let him say anything and said he was the only person he could count on to stay by her side at this moment. The man said he would go home to think because it wasn't an easy decision to make. Back at the apartment, the unstoppable routine at the construction site resumed. The leader told the group that starting tomorrow, they would begin working in another area. But at that moment, someone called out to the leader. It was Taeseok, who said he had something to say. The man asked if he wasn't going to take a few more days off again. Our boy said that wasn't the case this time. The man asked what it was then because lately he'd been absent quite a bit. And at that moment, Taeseok revealed that he had gotten an office job. The man said he hoped he wasn't quitting this job just to get paid peanuts elsewhere, because here, they pay pretty well. Our boy just apologized for not saying anything earlier, and revealed that he had been accepted into the Elson group. The boss's eyes merely popped out, and he asked what this Elson business was about. Our boy just revealed that unfortunately he wouldn't be coming back from tomorrow. The boss said it was hard to believe because he didn't come from a good university. Our boy said he couldn't believe it either, but somehow it worked out, and that's why he was there to tell him. The boss shouted, saying he worked hard to teach him, but in the end he did this. Our boy apologized, saying there wasn't much more he could say, and everyone fell silent. Then Cholson asked if they weren't going to have one last dinner since the boy was leaving. The boss didn't seem to like hearing that, and asked why he was talking about a farewell gathering when the boy was leaving the company like that. However, one of them, who was really excited, said he even called his wife. Man, the boy had just announced it. They should go out and have some soup and drinks. The boss wasn't happy about it. But the other guy said it was normal for people living paycheck to paycheck to end up doing this. At least Taeseok, who came to announce he was leaving, wanted to quit the company. The boss then said he wanted some pork bone soup. Our boy was a bit confused, and the man replied that since everyone wanted it, they would have that company dinner. Our boy, embarrassed, said it wasn't necessary. But the man responded that he wasn't doing it because he liked him, but because he was eager to curse him out all night. But our boy realized that even though the leader was angry, in the end he cared about him. At the dinner, the boss told him to take it seriously. Just because it was an office job didn't mean it would be easier. Our boy said he was motivated and would prepare himself as much as possible. The leader said it wasn't about that, but rather that everyone there had studied at the best universities. Our boy said he knew, but even so, he would stay focused and do his best. The man said that was fine, but if things didn't work out, he could come back anytime. He promised to secure a new position for the boy, even if he was busy. Smiling, our boy thanked him. The guy next to him even cleared his throat and said that if the boy had told them earlier, they would have given him something better. With that, he placed an envelope on the table. Confused, Taeseok asked what that was. The man just told him to take it. He needed to get used to accepting gifts from older people. It wasn't much money, but it was enough to at least buy a pair of shoes. These old guys are really nice people. Our boy thanked them, but said it wasn't necessary, that he was fine. At that moment, Cholson grabbed it and said that since the boy didn't want it, he'd take it. The man asked what he was thinking, and Cholson said he also needed a new pair of shoes. The man said he didn't have any occasion that required nice shoes, and told Taeseok to accept it quickly, or he would get very angry. Our boy knew it was a simple gesture, but he could feel the affection they had for him. That day, he said goodbye to his colleagues at that company, and the next day, he joined the Elson group. While thinking that in this giant building, people are all nice, man, the boy arrived with a briefcase. Oh right, it's the training camp. He introduced himself to the man and gave his name. The man decided to check to see who he was. He said he was number 1 and told him to enter quickly. But just as he was about to go in, the other man told him to wait and asked if he was born in 1992. Our boy said no. The man asked if it was 1994 and he said yes. The man then told him to get on bus number 3. Our boy said he understood. He imagined there was probably someone with the exact same name as him, which was why there had been this confusion with the birth dates. With that, he sat on his little bench, and the staff announced that they would be heading to the Elson training camp. Our boy was all blushing, now that he was a new employee. However, something in his pocket vibrated. It was Han-woo, telling him not to worry about his mother and to work hard. Our boy was relieved to read that. He thanked him and said he would return safely. In the seats ahead, a man stood up. He introduced himself as Kim Min-sum and said he would be leading bus number 3 today. Everyone shouted, asking him to take care of them. The man said that since they were going to the 4-week training, no one's job there had been decided yet. Man, 4 weeks just to train for the company? That's crazy. However, the people seemed all confused. The man said he must have made a mistake and asked who had already chosen their job. But no one raised their hand either. The man said that at Elson, training new employees was extremely important. They would be evaluated and observed and then given a job that suited them. He also joined the company after going through the same course they were about to go through. It was placed in the sales department because that's where he felt comfortable and could do well. One of the boys asked what happens if they receive a job they don't like. The man said in that case, they just had to stay in the top 10% of the training, as those could choose exactly where they would go. But the other 90% wouldn't have any choice. Even if they said they wanted to work in another department, maybe their wish wouldn't be granted. However, they had a system where if, after a year, you still felt you weren't well suited to that position, you could request another one. But he didn't recommend it much. You could end up being seen poorly by the team you worked with that first year. Our boy suffered, realizing how seriously it took capitalism there. Already understanding how serious getting into this company was. And the most dangerous thing was being seen poorly by others. He didn't want people to find out that his back needed surgery, because if he lost the job because of that, he'd have to start from scratch again. That's why he was going to stay strong. The buses were heading to the city of Sako. Everything was new and unfamiliar to our boy, but he was excited because the system was backing him up. With that, they arrived at what seemed to be the company's military base. Min-sung got out and told everyone to follow him. He passed the message that they would receive personal items, some gym clothes, and anything else they needed. Everyone then began to register. The man told our boy that he would be in room B13 on the 3rd floor. Of course, the rooms were divided by gender. They wouldn't put everyone in the same room. They were there to work and not that kind of work. Our boy then went to the little place where he would sleep. He entered the room and saw that it was empty, but at least it was just for 2 people. He quickly grabbed the gym clothes the man had given him. As he was getting dressed, another guy entered the room. He asked if this was B13, and our boy said yes. The man said it was pretty small, and our boy introduced himself as Taeseok. The man said it was nice to meet him and mentioned that his name was Minyoung. Our boy noticed that the man seemed a bit older and asked how old he was. Man, the guy said he was 29. My friend, life really did a number on him, poor guy. Our boy then said he was 25. And since the guy was older, he offered to take the top bunks since it was the worst. The guy gave him a thumbs up, saying the boy was very considerate, and our boy thanked him. That's when the guy mentioned that he just realized that at 25, he should have graduated high school 3 years ago. Our boy, embarrassed, said he got his diploma through the government. With that, an announcement was made for everyone to gather in front of the main building. The guy in front of our boy sighed and said it felt like they were back in the army. Our boy agreed and said they had to hurry up so they wouldn't be late. With that, over 260 new employees were in the auditorium. The guy then said that the training camp leader would say something to them. With that, a guy got up on stage, introduced himself, took the microphone, and gave a little hello to everyone who responded with a hello back. But this guy must watch too many motivational videos because he suddenly shouted, asking where everyone's voice was. Man, it felt like I was at one of those seminars where they sell courses and everyone shouted together. The coach introduced himself as Yoon Sunwook and said he worked as the director of the electronics department until last year. But this year, he was in charge of training all the new employees. They were one of the top 5 companies in Korea, but it hadn't always been that way. The guy told a sad story saying that in 1960, they went to Japan just to import technology. He asked if anyone knew where the first refrigerator in Korea was made and told them to raise their hand. Someone immediately said it was made at Elsung. The speaker said yes, and mentioned that it took 4 years just to develop that first one. It was a lot of trial and error to make that thing happen. At that time, it was extremely expensive, but now every household has one. Our boy thought that the speaker's words were about the company's present, past, and future. All of it was to make them realize that they were now part of a single unit. And the guy shouted, saying that from now on, they're at the training camp. They were all Elsung employees. A little later, the guy named Min Soo announced that they would have to work until 10 o'clock. But he said they would need a leader to organize everything and asked if anyone wanted to volunteer. A guy raised his hand. Obviously, right? It's our sly boy with his little system. I'd raise my hand too. He glanced to the side, and there was competition. Did you think it was easy to be a leader here in the world of motivational speakers? Even these guys are watching Thiago Finch, and our boy saw that about 6 people were competing for it. But that's when he noticed something. His roommate also raised his hand. The scene shifts back to our boy's dorm. He's there alone, feeling tired, anxious, and bored all at once. That's because his roommate became the leader. When everyone raised their hand, he was announced as the new leader of Team B. The time he would stay in that position was 1 week, and he could choose to step down. Of course, after that time, people could also vote to remove him from the position. Everyone shouted that they understood, and the guy told them to shout Elsum instead of understood. Man, these capitalism slaves were brainwashed. Our boy left the room because he was dying of boredom. Outside, everyone was working hard, while talking a lot. He figured it might be a good time to take a shower and relax. The problem was that there was a public laundry room, a public bathroom, a public sink, and a public mirror. There were TVs everywhere, and he barely had any personal space. Man, you have your room. Are you tired? Go back there, dummy. Apparently, he went to the dungeon. He put his hand on the doorknob, saying he was going to do it. That was nothing. He was already shirtless. He had always worked on construction sites. Sometimes he couldn't even take a shower, so he just slept on a pile of wood. And when they had no money to eat, it was black instant noodles on the floor. That corporate place was nothing to him, and it was emptier than he expected. But he knew that those who had only studied and never worked in a company would have a hard time dealing with a place full of cliques. And obviously, the seniors would be hanging around taking notes on everything. It's a bit peculiar to see these guys showering and that guy with a notebook in hand, right? I don't know, man. Back in the room, our boy was extremely busy, clearly working hard. Of course, he was studying, right, folks? Our boy is hardworking. He looked at the clock and saw it was 9:30. At that moment, his roommate came in and he asked if the guy had finished the work. He said no, actually, and asked him if he had filled out the questionnaire. The guy said yes, and that was his mission for today. Our boy thanked him and asked if he wanted help. The guy said no need and that he could rest since he took on the role of leader. Our boy said that was fine then and said goodbye. I thought there was going to be something incredible happening in this discussion, but apparently that was it. And at 1 in the morning, someone opened the door, waking up our boy. Our boy asked if the guy had finished and he said no. And then he asked if everyone had completed the questionnaire. The guy said in that case, everyone must have finished. But Taeseok, the product of capitalism, already had a feeling. That guy was moving way too slowly. And then Minyoung burst through the door, calling out the guy. He said he had until 10 p.m. to finish the questionnaire, so why hadn't it been delivered yet? The guy said it was difficult because everyone had already gone to sleep, so he'd collect them tomorrow. Of course, he got scolded for messing up on the first day. All embarrassed, the first victim of the training apologized. The guy noticed he had been too harsh and told him to go to sleep because they'd see each other at 7 a.m. With that, he slammed the door shut, and our boy just watched, feeling like an idiot. Taeseok had already offered to help, and the guy refused twice. So he decided not to offer again, as the guy might feel belittled. The next morning, he was walking down the hallway when someone called out to him, and he asked what it was. It was the leader who wanted to know where his roommate had gone. Our boy said he had no idea since he woke up and didn't see him. The leader told him to find him and tell him to get in touch. Our boy said okay and asked for the number. But now he didn't know where that crazy guy was, and he hadn't even gotten his number. He could already imagine that the guy wasn't going to do well in this place. At that moment, he heard a shout in the hallway, and he ran out to see what it was, curious as ever. He saw that it seemed to be coming from room B19. The guys were saying it was ridiculous to deliver the questionnaire at 6:30 and asked for it to be done by 7. And they said he shouldn't have volunteered to be the leader if he was going to handle problems like that. Minyoung apologized, saying he would be more careful, and he walked away all downcast, saying he wasn't going to survive this. The guy with the blue towel said he almost felt sorry for him, but the other one said he deserved it. The group leader is a position that earns more stars, but this guy was doing a horrible job, so he didn't deserve it. And he left saying he had nothing against the guy, it's just that he was careless for this job. Our boy wasn't naive and knew that the company was likely looking for people who could maintain good relationships. But then the system sound came. The mission was to read the entire training camp book. With that, he would be perfectly prepared for the next 4 weeks of training. Additionally, he received another mission to become the leader of the teams. Minyoung was flaunting the quests of the motivational speaker. That's when he noticed his poor roommate once again going around asking for the sheets. He called out to Minyoung, who asked what it was. Our boy informed him that Senior Minsung was calling him on the 2nd floor. He looked at the clock and saw he only had 15 minutes for that meeting, but he hadn't finished the work. Our boy was about to offer help, but the guy just ran off saying it was fine and that he could handle it. Like a desperate person, he started knocking on everyone's doors. But now our boy was getting angry because it seemed like this guy was doing this just to keep all the stars. But on the other hand, he had never asked the guy to deliver any leader stars, so why was he doing this? He couldn't risk ruining his own reputation because this guy was being selfish. He then called Minsum and said he had informed the guy of everything he had requested. The man thanked him for his hard work. He told him to come to the meeting as they would be waiting for Minyoung. But time was ticking away. It was 7:30 and the guy hadn't shown up. Our boy was there thinking that the guy had really messed up. He should have understood that if there's a problem, selfishness isn't the solution. At that moment, Minyoung rushed in, apologizing for being late. Minsung only asked where the list was. Minyoung apologized, saying that people weren't cooperating because it was so last minute, and they got angry. The man shouted, asking how it was possible that no one wanted to cooperate with him. As the leader, it was his job to have solved this and not come here to tell stories. The poor guy was devastated, and the man told him to hurry up or he'd miss breakfast. The boy just accepted it. Our boy realized that he should have refused breakfast to help him sort this out. But there he was walking away. But he was getting a bit angry now. He's watching our protagonist, thinking, you messed up. At that moment, our boy had finished reading the entire guidebook. He approached the leader and told him he should have breakfast, to which he replied that unfortunately, he couldn't today. Our boy asked if it would take that long, and the guy said unfortunately yes. Of course, our boy offered help. The guy's back is broken and his mom's in the hospital. He's just trying to make a lot of money. With that, the guy explained the process of how he would have to organize everything. And he got up, saying he was going to get the rest of the people who hadn't sent their sheets. But our boy said to just check the phone numbers and call them while they were verifying. With that, the first person was already knocking on the door. She apologized for being late, and our boy said it was okay. Our boy was a very efficient worker. And with that, they finally finished the registration for the 3 teams. Minsung apologized for making our boy miss breakfast, but he said it was fine. He even offered the only energy bar he had. Oh no, this kid really wants to be the next Elon Musk. The man told him he could eat it, but our boy said he had plenty of those in his room. With that, Minsung ate it and said that life at the company is sometimes like this. No matter how much he screens during the process, there are always people like that. But it was a relief because he had removed it first. our boy realized that this whole thing was more serious than he had imagined. The man left, telling him to go to his room and eat the energy bar, even if he arrived a little late. The scene then shifted to the next meeting. He said the team training was about to happen and asked if everyone was there. He looked at Min-sung and asked if no one was missing. All flustered, he said yes, everyone was there. The man said that was fine, so they would start now. But of course, he didn't even know if everyone was there. He began the lecture by saying that today they would study the history and founding of the company, when suddenly, Tae-seok walked in. Of course, everyone looked since the question about whether everyone was there had just been asked, and he apologized, saying he was late. His roommate was angry that the jerk arrived right then. This Min-sung guy is all smiles. Come on, where's a waifu? We need one. He then told Tae-seok to come to the front, and said he had a message to pass on to the entire group B before they started. He would be replacing the leader of Team B with Kim Tae-seok. Our boy was shocked. He didn't see that coming. But with that, he completed the mission of becoming the leader. Our boy thought to himself that he didn't expect it to be so easy to complete the mission. He hadn't done anything wrong, so he didn't feel bad. But he was sure that guy must be feeling betrayed. The problem was that now they would continue sharing the same room, and it wouldn't be comfortable at all. A while later, the lecture ended, and the man told everyone to write down their thoughts about it. And he informed the leader of Team B to gather the group for a meeting later. Our proactive boy, the dream employee, quickly told everyone to wait before leaving. He explained that everyone would have to write more than one page, but less than two. And besides that, they would have to meet at 9:30. Lastly, he would create a group and everyone was supposed to join it before going to dinner. He told everyone to cooperate, but his roommate wasn't very happy. He was in a corner writing that the group would only be used to send information. When Min-sung walked in and asked what he was doing there, our boy said he was going to suggest that groups A, B, and C enter separately, and the man said it was a good idea. But he warned him to tell everyone in the group to turn off their phones, or they would lose points if someone's phone rang. Our boy said he understood and would tell everyone. The man told him to keep taking care of the team, but also to focus on his own work, and said goodbye to our boy, who was feeling confident, thinking he had done a good job. But the problem was that he really was running out of time. Being a leader wasn't easy. Then his roommate came into the room, sat down next to him, and just stared at him. Our boy wanted to know what this crazy guy was doing, and the guy asked if Tae-seok wasn't going to say anything to him. When he didn't respond, the guy asked again if he wasn't going to say anything at all. Our boy just replied that becoming the leader was Min-sung's decision, and he had nothing to do with it. But the guy stood up and said that saying he had nothing to do with it was the biggest lie. He saw the two of them chatting in the morning meeting and knew he must have said something. Our boy explained that it was Min-sung who suggested the three of them go have breakfast together afterward. But the guy said he didn't believe it, and that was a lame excuse. Our boy just sighed, realizing it wasn't going to be easy to convince this guy. He stood up, saying there had been a misunderstanding, but he couldn't explain it now, and told him to come back and talk when he was feeling better. But the guy cursed at him, told him to stay put, and asked where he was going. Man, our boy just closed the door and said goodbye. The scene shifted to the meeting room. They were just hanging out when someone knocked on the door, asking to come in. It was Min-yeom who asked to change rooms. Min-sung asked why that was. He replied that he couldn't stay with the same roommate. Min-sung asked if his roommate was Tae-seok. The guy said yes, and that he wanted either him or Tae-seok to move out. Of course, the man didn't hold back and asked if he wanted to move because he lost the leader position. If that was really the case, he was disappointed. But Min-yeom said he was disappointed with a guy who was a backstabber and sucked up to others. Another person in the room even got up, but his friend told him it was better not to get involved. And Min-yeom kept shouting, asking if it was right for a new employee to be stabbing his friend in the back. He was sure that Tae-seok was jealous and just wanted to grab the stars he was supposed to get. Our boy approached, told him to calm down, and said it was better if they talked outside. With that, he asked for permission to leave and said they would go out. But Min-yeom ignored him and said he was talking to the senior. Even Min-sung told our boy not to get involved, that he would have to talk to Min-yeom. It wasn't like he had nothing to say either. That's when he realized, man, that things were getting serious. If he had a broken back, he wouldn't be risking the job like this. The man said that from the beginning, he had been making mistakes in the leader position. He asked if he had completed what he was asked to do by 10 p.m. The poor guy responded that he hadn't. Then he asked what he did when he was given another chance at 7 a.m. The guy, all embarrassed, tried to explain that it was unintentional. Man, this is way too realistic. It's really like the boss chewing out the poor guy who has no defense. And Min-sung then asked why someone who failed at everything that was asked of him should stay in the leader position. The other guys even told him to calm down, saying the guy was just a beginner, even though he looked like a family man at 29 years old. Then we see a flashback because as Min-sung was leaving, our boy called out to him. He asked what it was, and Tae-seok said he had a request. He wanted him to give Min-yeom another chance. And Min-sung revealed this, saying that Tae-seok stood by him until the end. He asked if he knew why he lost this opportunity that the so-called traitor created. It was because of the moment when he obviously asked if anyone was missing, and he said no. If he had honestly responded that someone was missing, he wouldn't have lost the position. Our boy was standing at the door like a fool. What can you do, right? And the boss said that since he wanted to change rooms, he'd make sure that wish was granted. He was to pack up his things and leave the training camp that night. The scene shifts to the staircase, and our boy tells his friend that he hadn't said anything. He should wait until dinner and try to apologize to the senior so as not to lose his job. The guy was probably just upset because he hadn't eaten all day. After eating, he would probably forgive him. At that moment, Minyoung calls out to our boy, apologizes, and says he wanted to thank him. Our boy, being a professional employee, says that even though they have their differences, they're still co-workers. Even if they can't be friends, they'll have to respect each other as colleagues. The scene shifts to him gathering everyone after dinner. He asks if the group is familiar with Elsung's exercises. Apparently, no one knows since no one responds. A curious one asks if it's important to know this. Our boy says that according to what he read in the book, it seemed pretty important. Out of the 1,000 points they could earn in training, 50 came from this evaluation alone. Teams A, B, and C would compete against each other, and the best one would earn the points. So what they should do is start practicing right away to get those 50 points. He said he had already studied the book and just needed a few guys to help him out at night. He even offered some of his leader stars to those who participated. Naturally, the greedy ones all jumped at the chance. Capitalism trains them well. With that, the group left, but they were excited about the prospect of earning 50 more points. They were also saying that it was a pity for the other leader, but this one was much better. Our boy is just celebrating. At least the fools listened to what he said. However, he couldn't stall any longer. It was time to write his report. But man, his friend just stood there doing nothing. And if you think he's changed his mind, he hasn't. Just look at that angry face. With that, night falls. Our boy calls out to the seniors, but they don't respond, so he asks for permission to enter the broadcast room. When he gets there, the two are crouched down looking like fools. Our boy asks if there's a problem with the amplifier and says he could take a look. Minsun asks if he knows how to fix it. Our boy says he's done all kinds of jobs and asks him to hold the book. That's when he realizes that it's a task that had already been assigned to his team. While the guys check it out, our boy explains that he had asked everyone to bring it at night, which is why it was already done. A little while later, he says he's finished. The guys, confused, ask if it was really that fast. He says they just need to run a test. And with that, the speakers start working again. Then at that moment, the fool announces that the report should be delivered. The poor guys have to rush because the announcement was made super late. When they get there, they apologize for being late. Our boy asks if the speakers were loud and clear, and they say yes. The guy next to Minsung asks what the boy's name is. However, he replies that it's better to keep an eye out because he's already planning to recruit him for his team. Our hardworking boy asks if he can make an announcement to his team. He tells the selected members to go to the gym. The scene then shifts to the gym. Apparently, our boy got early access there for helping fix the amplifier. The girl next to him asks if he understands physical exercise and that sort of thing. Our boy says he worked in construction, so he had to know quite a bit about it to avoid getting hurt. One of them asks if it was an Elsung construction site. Our boy says that's exactly it. He said he would demonstrate the process. They should record it and share it with everyone. They finished in 20 minutes. He's going to take a shower. Quick work, huh? Nearby, Minsung's stalker was just watching. He said the boy is friendly and doesn't act much, but he has a serious side. Of course, he wanted to bring this one to the sales team. The problem was, how was he going to convince this boy to work in sales instead of other departments? After that, our boy went to take a shower. The only thing missing is this damn Minsung being there too. Our boy is exhausted and realizes he'll have to give out more stars to get help from the team. As our boy was about to enter his room, he heard someone saying they'd been stabbed in the back. The mother asks what happened and if she should visit the company. Our boy is just listening, and of course it's Minyoung saying that he's about to turn 30 and she can't do that. But the mother insists, saying they're mistreating her baby. She says she's going to visit, but the guy in bed says it's not necessary. Our boy stays outside on his phone. He decides to give his mother a call, that damn capitalist he had forgotten. He chats a bit, asks how things are going and how the treatment is, and she says everything is fine. Later that night, he uploaded the video that helps everyone earn more points in gymnastics. Everyone was thanking him, saying the new leader was incredible and that they were all going to watch it. Our boy was all smiles, but then he started to drift off to sleep. The next day, he woke up to the system flashing. The message said that he had officially become a new employee. The boy was now going to start receiving a salary, and he was officially a new employee. Our boy had no idea because he hadn't been informed of anything, but it seems someone did something about it. The system then said his vision would receive an upgrade. He clicked on the little message to see what it was. That little potion transformed the unemployed eye into the eye of a new employee. Our boy asked the system how to purchase it. The system said he just had to say buy while thinking of the item's name. So he repeated the action on a potion, and it started to leave the little window. Man, it was a physical item. It was thrown right at him. Meanwhile, his childhood best friend was waking up downstairs, telling him to keep quiet because he was being too loud. At 5:55 a.m., our boy left the room. It seems some guys were taking care of something for the leader, and he said he would take over now. Obviously, being so early, he was a bit exhausted. However, he enjoyed being alone in all that silence. Maybe it was the perfect time to check that thing out. A while later, a guy announced that they would be receiving another evaluation and a test. But now our boy with his upgraded eye was prepared. He spent the points and would already know most of the right answers. Later, the group was doing those exercises. The first pretty woman in this outfit was impressed that Team B was so good at gymnastics. Our boy was proud of his team who had been practicing hard and thanked the fools for their hard work. The scene shifts to the study room. A guy asked why our boy studied so much and why he was making those summaries. Our boy replied that he wanted to get a good grade so he could choose a good department. Time passed. Everyone was struggling while our boy was focused. Right, clever one? It's easy with a hack. But he's kind-hearted too, and occasionally he would drop a hint here and there, maybe about what might be on the test. It was Friday already, and Min-sung warned everyone not to even think about cheating since it would be the worst thing they could do. Those who studied with our boy took the test and found it easy. Even the waitress were impressed. Everyone in the boys' group had smiles on their faces, and the game of cheating was acing it, right? That night, the results were out, and everyone was eager to see them. Our boy went to take a look. Everyone's scores were displayed, and our boy, Kim Tae-seok, oh look, he was in first place. Like really first. And one day in second. Hey, why are you glowing, boy? What's that name? Who are you? He heard someone complaining right behind him, and when he looked, it was Min-young with a foolish look on his face. Our boy decided to take a look to see if this guy had even studied anything. It turns out he almost did the opposite of acing it, marking answers randomly. I think it could have gone better than that guy. Our boy was walking around thinking he had nothing to do with that guy's grades. Meanwhile, his friends on the other side were all clapping, saying it was amazing to have a leader who was in first place. Everyone also said that his study group was all in the top 5. That's crazy. He said it was no big deal. However, the girl next to him said he was incredible. With these friends, he headed to his room and waved goodbye. He was walking around knowing that he only got first place because of the employee's eye. The problem now was that he was feeling insecure since he was drawing too much attention. And there was someone right on his tail, observing him, right? Wondering if that's the so-called Kim Tae-seok. Oh, but she said he's different from when he was younger. Do you know our boy from back then? She turns around thinking she'll figure it out later. But here comes a little window. Our boy was confused this time. When he entered the room, there was annoying Min-young sitting on the bed. He glared at our boy with anger, who wondered why the atmosphere was so weird. Our boy asked for permission to use the stairs, but Min-young only asked if he liked it. Our boy, confused, asked what he was talking about, and the crazy one just told him to answer whether he liked it or not. Okay, this guy was losing his mind, and that fool deserves a punch. Too bad he lost his job. This mess could have been a dungeon. Our boy then said he'd pretend he didn't hear such nonsense, but advised him to be careful. The guy stood up, apologizing, but then changed his expression and said if that's what he was expecting, he'd heard it. He came closer and said he was going to ask him something. He wanted to know if it wasn't enough to steal the leader position, and on top of that, he still wanted to be first to humiliate him. Our boy said that he was doing the opposite on the test, so it's irrelevant that he came in first. However, the guy jabbed him in the chest, saying that if he were the leader, it would be impossible for him to be in last place. He knew he should be honest, acknowledging that he must have earned some points because of that, and it would be wise for him to quickly explain his relationship with the seniors. The guy kept poking our boy, saying he should reveal why he was replaced. Apparently, there's some connection. Either he knew someone in the family, or it looks like he paid some money. Our boy, losing his patience, told him to choose his words more carefully. He blocked the guy's hand, telling him to stop with that nonsense, and said that if he wanted to accuse him of something, he should first find some evidence. However, of course, the guy then claimed that it seemed like he had been hit. He dramatically said his arm hurt and his wrist was in pain. He collapsed to the ground like he was sick, asking why it hurt so much and if it had been broken. Our boy said patience has its limits and he should stop with this. But the guy stood up and asked if he thought his reaction was exaggerated. Tae-seok replied that everything that happened was his own fault. But Min-young insisted that it was all unfair and that it was indeed Tae-seok's fault. If he were going to be fired, he would take Tae-seok down with him. He started screaming, claiming he was being beaten and calling for help. But no one was outside to hear it. Night fell. Our boy was sitting on a bench in the park, calm and solitary, but deep in thought, seemingly unsure of what to do. Until a girl in a skirt approached him. She asked if he was Tae-seok. Man, I thought she'd be prettier. She almost looks like a man in a wig, but alright, he said yes, he was Tae-seok. She said that it seemed like he was quite arrogant. Confused, our boy asked what she was talking about. She said she'd get straight to the point and asked if he gave money to Assistant Min-sung. Our boy seemed to understand what was going on. He said he had no idea where she heard that, but he had never done anything like that. The woman said there were suspicions that Min-sung leaked the answers, which is why he got that grade. Our boy replied that he wasn't sure who she was, but imagined she was connected to Min-young. The woman responded that he better be careful with what he says or he'll be expelled from the training. Our boy just asked if she really believed they leaked the answers during employee training. She said that didn't matter since they had circumstantial evidence that something happened with the test leak. She questioned if he really thought he could escape this. Our boy said he had no idea who she was and told her to stop attacking him. She asked if he was anxious in some way and reminded him that she hadn't attacked him at any point. However, our boy responded that she seemed anxious, trying to incriminate him. The whole thing about Minhyang being beaten and the test being leaked was just made up in his head. Besides, there wasn't any circumstantial evidence. She asked if he really believed that. Our boy just asked to be excused, but she ordered him to stay put and said he would listen. She reminded him that she could get him expelled from this place and said that it seemed he didn't know how to handle people to get involved in this kind of situation. Out of nowhere, she started belittling him, asking if he knew who Minhyang's parents were and warned that even without evidence, no one would believe him. He needed to understand that those without money should just stay quiet. The fact that he didn't know this kind of thing was what made it his fault. Our boy simply replied that she was being a snob. He reiterated that, as he said, no one leaked the test, and he only passed because he studied with his classmates, and that the whole idea of him bribing Minsung didn't make any sense. He didn't even have money to attend a university and still worked on construction sites. And apparently, she thought it was wrong for someone who didn't go to a good university to get the highest grade. He walked away, saying he wouldn't talk to her anymore. She was left angry, wondering how the damn trainee could treat her like that. As he was walking away, a car passed by him. The woman from the company apologized for the madam and had to go over there. And the lady in the red dress said she had to come late like this because her son was being beaten at the company. She started getting more and more upset, and the employee tried to calm her down, saying she couldn't do something like that. Our boy was just observing from the side, right? You can already guess who it is. She entered shouting that she had ordered them to take care of her son. So why was this happening? The employee just tried to calm her down, saying this was a training place. Our boy already knew it involved the damn Minhyang, and the woman glanced at him. But our boy was thinking that in the end, the one buying others was this guy. The scene shifts to Minsung, exhausted. Our boy walks by and asks what happened. Minhyang's father was in the National Assembly, and it seemed like now he was going to lose his job. Our boy asks if it was wrong for him to have received the highest score, and the guy says no. The grade he received was well-deserved, so it wasn't wrong. Our boy says that packing his bags might have been an exaggeration. It wasn't guaranteed that he would lose his job just like that. However, Minsung said that the world isn't as easy as he thinks. The boy's father was a congressman, so it seemed like the conclusions had already been drawn. Even though Minhyang was a terrible employee, he should have let it slide. This happened because he wasn't good enough at assessing the situation. Our boy smiled and asked how a salesman could be so weak. He shouldn't worry when, in fact, the person is innocent. Minsung said that his innocence didn't change the fact that the guy's father was a congressman, but our boy said he knew of a way. Shocked, Minsung asked what he meant by that. Our boy said that from the beginning, he had already known a solution, and now he had made his decision. We see a flashback to that moment when he waved goodbye to the guy. He went to his room, and as he entered, a system window appeared. It asked if he would put someone in trouble for his own benefit. Our boy was confused, unsure if he should choose. However, the system warned that the time for the decision would come soon in the future. Inside a room, someone apologizes for a disciplinary committee meeting so late at night. The director says it's unacceptable that the answers were leaked. That woman from before says it's truly the worst case scenario, and that's why she wanted to recommend that Kim Tae-seok be disqualified and expelled from the place, along with disciplinary measures for Kim Min-sung, who was the senior supervising him. The mother, with a face that looks like she deserves a punch, asks when they will address the violence her son suffered. She wanted to know why her little angel had been treated like a dog and warned that if they didn't handle it, the whole world would find out what happens in that training. The director said they would have to hear both sides' opinions before making any decisions. He asked if anyone had any objections to this, and everyone responded that they did not. Obviously, with the cunning plan, they looked at each other and said they had no objections either. The director then looks at the accusation that Minhyang made against the boy, asking what evidence there was. He said that all the people who came from excellent universities still couldn't get a perfect score. Even within Team B, there was only one perfect score. And the worst part is that it was from the boy who got his diploma through the government's credit system. The director asks if the only evidence he has is a rational suspicion. Minhyang replies that it is. The director then says they will discuss the second item on the agenda and asks if he believes Minsung has any connection with Tae-seok, as not only did he lose his position, but he also earned the highest score. However, just like the first piece of evidence, it's all circumstantial and he has no concrete proof. Minhyang says that's exactly right. The director says that, as expected, there's no physical evidence. However, it's still a reasonable doubt, so if Tae-seok has nothing against it, they wouldn't have chosen to accept the things Minhyang said. The guy next to him agrees. The head says that he will first ask Minsung if he has anything to refute what Minhyang said. Minsung says that he respects himself and unfortunately doesn't have any evidence. The head says he understands and asks if Tae-seok has any evidence. Our boy says he does not. At that moment, Minsung is shocked. The head asks if they will have to accept what Minhyang said. Our boy stands up and says that, on the contrary, there is someone outside who can prove his innocence, and he would like them to be allowed into the meeting. The mother is shocked, and Minhyang looks foolish, while that annoying woman just gives a glance. Min-sung seems to know what to expect, or maybe he's unsure. But we flash back to when the mother arrived angry, saying she was going to hit everyone in that place. That's when the system window appeared. It said that in this world you can't live alone, he would have to choose a colleague to save him from this crisis. Human relationships were also based on trust, so if he helped people, he would receive help in return. He should call on them because if they were true friends, they would find a way. Our boy told that annoying system to get lost because he was going to do what he was told. Our boy then sent a message in the study group, saying he was in trouble because of the grade he got. Some people were impressed and others said it was to be expected. Seeing these reactions and no one saying anything, he realized that maybe no one would help him. However, one person said that in this case, he should be rewarded, not accused. But this person understood that no one would accept his argument of innocence. That's why he was asking for help. The group then said they were all ready and seemed excited. Our boy simply thanked them. It was at that moment that he walked past Min-sung. Back at the meeting, he asks if it's okay for the group to come in. The director says that if it's going to help, they can enter. With that, the first person enters, asking for permission. It's Choi Jin-young, the guy who studied every day with our boy. The leader asks if he knows what Taeseok is being accused of and if he has any evidence. He says yes, and that he has the evidence and asks for the evaluation papers. The chief looks at the guy next to him and asks him to bring them. Jin-young then throws some papers on the table and says that these are what he's been studying with leader Taeseok. The director questions how this is evidence and what it explains. The guy says that all of them studied together with Taeseok all night long, and in front of them, each one missed one question while he got everything right. The chief remarked that it was obvious. Clearly, more information was leaked than they had initially thought. However, he says that would be the case if they hadn't all missed different questions. The guy mentions that they could have intentionally missed one or two, but the director tells him to continue. Jin-young then says that there's also a list of everyone who missed less than 3 questions on the entire test, and they have received signatures from everyone to prove that it was accurate. The guy said that was fine and that they would take a look. And sure enough, when it comes to the test, many people indeed missed fewer than 3 questions. Jin-young states that the problem isn't that the test was leaked, but rather that it was too easy. Even though Taeseok had a lower educational background than others, a perfect score in this case didn't mean much. Additionally, considering that he passed the LSUM test and had work experience, it was even less unlikely. The director says that, indeed, considering all of that, it makes sense. He then asks what he thinks about Min-sung giving the boy a perfect score in the administrative section. Jin-young says he thinks it's fair since he was always doing his best as a leader and helping everyone. He also assisted everyone on Team B to get better scores. This evaluation is relative compared to others, so if he wasn't the one with the highest score, then who would be? If it wasn't him, then it would be suspicious that the other person might have some kind of connection. The system, which seems very much alive, congratulates our boy for having made good friends. Outside, the rest of the group is eager to listen in on the conversation, until Jin-young opens the door. He's all shaky, saying he was terrified and thought he was going to die. The director then says that Jin-young's evidence is stronger than Min-young's accusations. He concludes that Taeseok and Min-sung won't suffer any harm from the accusations made by Min-young, and obviously he won't accept any counter-arguments using the same reasoning, so they would have to present something else. The mother bangs on the table and asks if Taeseok is saying that her son is a liar. Even if he got a perfect score on that test, she wanted to know what was going on with him supposedly hitting her son. However, Min-sung stands up and says he's had enough of this. Our boy tells him to calm down or he'll lose his job, but he insists that he's sure Taeseok never laid a hand on Min-young and that they were just doing this to wrong him for no reason. Our boy says there's no need for this and asks him to calm down. The strange Min-sung asks if he has any proof, and with no other choice, he just sits down with a frown. Our boy was just observing, and now the mother and son were starting to feel confident. Our boy then calls out to the director and says he will provide evidence of the alleged violence. Back to the system, when it asked if he would cause trouble for someone for his own benefit, our boy wondered if he really had to choose. The system warned that it wasn't time for that decision yet, but it would be better if he prepared. It advised him to keep the voice recorder on his phone running for an hour. The moment to use it would come soon, so he should be ready. That was when he entered the room and found Min-young. Back at the meeting, he plays the recording, and of course, the whole conversation begins to play out. Min-young says that if there were any problems, he would take him down with him, and that if he were fired, Taeseok would be too. And then, out of nowhere, he suddenly started screaming that he was being beaten, kicking up a fuss so everyone could hear. In the recording, he even says that he doesn't care if he's lying or not. There was no one outside, so he was going to shout that he was being hit. Now the woman realized she had no way out, and the mother noticed that it would be difficult to argue against this. Obviously, the director was very serious. Our boy says that he's been doing this for over 10 minutes and asks if they want to continue listening. Now the mother glares at her son, and boy, our boy is raised with a threat, right? He says he heard that his father is one of the top congressmen and imagines what would happen if this audio were made public. So he should admit his mistake and leave the training field, and then he'll delete those files. He received 3 false accusations from the same person, so he's being merciful in letting the guy leave like this. The president says that if he really accepts this kind of conclusion, he has no problem with it. And now the son is being disciplined. Meanwhile, the woman with glasses realizes she backed the wrong side, doesn't she, fool? The scene shifts to the mother leaving in the car. Someone calls out to Senior Yeonyeon. It's a mention that she seems to know how to bow down. Man, he could be fired for harassment at this rate. He was curious why she appeared when she normally wouldn't get involved in this. Was she going to get a car or a house from Minyeong's mother? She just told him not to get involved as it had nothing to do with him. He said that in a way it did because it would affect one of his students. She then asked if he was trying to accuse her of something. He questioned whether they needed to go that far. Was it just an accusation? And then he played the audio from the moment she berated Taeseok, talking about Minyeong's relatives and saying he should have known it was his fault for going against that boy. This girl was acting like she was at the dentist, making faces and telling Minsum to stop. He said that was fine, but now they were going to have a little chat. She wanted to know what he wanted then. Man, he was cruel too and simply said he wanted her out of there. She should cite personal reasons for her departure and asked if she would comply. She said yes, but told him to hand over the recording. He said it was time to settle this now. He told her to call HR and resign, or he would have to arrange a strategic meeting. She got angry, and right then he turned around and said that if that was the case, he was heading to the meeting. He then told her to stay put. He took out his phone and started typing something. Of course, HR answered, and she apologized for calling so late. She started making up lies, saying she wanted to resign, and of course, claiming it was all for personal reasons. Meanwhile, Minsung was just leaving. The scene shifts to our boy collapsed on the ground. It had been much more exhausting than he expected. With that, it was announced that the woman had lost her job and that fool Minyeong had been kicked out. The scene jumps forward a bit to when they are preparing for a trip. Our boy is just calling Team B and telling them to get on bus 3. Then someone approaches the boy. She comes up all friendly, asking if he is the leader of Team B, known as Taeseok. Our boy is all flustered, isn't he? She stands there, waiting for him to shake her hand. And the fool starts wiping his shirt, saying he was too dirty. He then leans in, all red, and says he's never seen her around. She introduces herself as Siu Yanji and remembers that she was the one who placed second. She must be angry. She says that this week she's the leader of Team C, and he asks what happened to her. She says it's common for leaders to change weekly, but apparently Team B wasn't interested in changing. That's when he realized he had been kept as the leader and hadn't even noticed. She says it's interesting that he didn't even realize that, but she'd like to know when he'll let go of her hand. He says her name then and says he remembers now. She finds it odd and asks if he's really that Kim Taeseok. Apparently, there's another Kim Taeseok around. He says he saw her name in second place and says it's impressive, but she says it's not right for him who came in first to say something like that, and that it seems like he's saying it to hurt her. Our boy apologizes and says he spoke without thinking. She says it's okay, she was just being a little playful. Her outfit doesn't scream waifu, it's all business attire. She says that if he joins the planning office, they'll be seeing more of each other in the future. Our boy, confused, asks what that is. And the system says it's the best group of thinkers in the company, and the salary ranges from 0 to infinity. Seeing the infinity part, our boy is shocked. She asks why he's staring at her back so much, and he says it's nothing, he's just crazy. She says that tomorrow is the weekend and they'll have some free time. So what does he think about dinner? Our boy, all awkward, asks if it's a dinner for two, like how? She says she thought it would be okay, just the two of them. She wanted to have some strategic meetings with him since she needed to be in the top 5 to get the position she wanted. And she imagines he also wants the company of another top-ranked person. She tells our boy to take her number, you sly one. She was sure it wouldn't hurt for the two of them to get closer since they both wanted a good position. With that, she looked at the clock and said she had to go lead her team. I've never seen this boy so flustered. He told her she could go. With that, she left and couldn't take his eyes off her. However, she turned around and said that no matter what their colleagues did, they were now an alliance. Man, she already made her way into his heart. However, in the background, there's another guy. Clearly, he observed everything, and that blush on his face says a lot. Our boy was all confused. He knew that it didn't seem like a very pure intention. The problem was that it was also hard to understand what she was really after. He was a bit worried. The scene shifts to her observing a board. Of course, she was just keeping an eye on our boy, and another boy who was at the very bottom. She had some interesting information. The president's son, named our boy, was at this training place. So that guy we saw at the beginning talking to the president is also named Kim Taeseok, and she says that considering everything, the top one must be the president's son. It wouldn't make sense for him to be at the bottom. But later that night, our boy went to bother Jinyang. He opened by asking what he wanted to talk about so late at night. Our boy was traumatized after Minyeong and was planning to bring his friend along to the meeting. His friend said he had no intention of eating. He didn't feel like going out. However, our boy didn't respond. The friend asked what he was thinking. Obviously, he was just trying to figure out what that girl's purpose was. She was all smiles, saying she was just joking with him. To him, this whole business of forming a partnership to get into that strategic committee seemed very suspicious, especially since in the end she said it didn't matter what the other colleagues said. They were now an alliance. He didn't want to be too hostile, but he also didn't know much about her. Man, he's afraid she's some beast who wants to eat him. Oh, I get it. In the bad sense, not the good bad sense, but the bad sense, to mess him up. You get it. But he was already thinking that she was smart, that she seemed confident, and that also, come on, are you going to stand there without saying anything? You jerk, what are you going to say? At that moment, his friend grabbed him by the neck and told him to stop ignoring him. Our boy said that hurt, and the friend quickly asked him to explain why he wanted to talk. Taeseok then revealed that he had promised to go out to eat with Yeonji. Jin-young asked if he was talking about the girl who came in second place, and our boy said that his reaction was suspicious. However, it was Jin-young who said that she was known as the goddess of that training camp. Man, no offense, but that training camp must be pretty weak, huh? Our boy asked since when, and the friend said since the first day, explaining that it's because she's extremely beautiful and intelligent in the department. Look, and our boy interrupted, saying that's enough of that. The friend then asked when they were going to eat together. Our boy stood up and said, now. The friend knew that she was in second place, our boy was in first, and he was in third. That distribution didn't seem like a coincidence. Our boy said it wasn't a coincidence. He asked if Jin-young was also aiming to get into the strategic planning office. Jin-young asked why he wanted to know that all of a sudden, and if it had anything to do with the dinner. He said it was Yeonji who mentioned it to him, and that she also said he could invite others who were at the top of the leaderboard, which is why he was inviting his friend. Our boy said he should have mentioned it, but his friend said it was fine. He said yes, that has been his goal since he started studying at law school. Our boy asked if he wasn't lying, and he said no, that had always been his dream. Now in front of a bus stop, someone's mother was waiting for her kids, wondering if the boy would really be late. But look, there he is arriving, right? The most beautiful of all the workers flashed a smile. However, she then noticed that our boy had brought someone along. She got a bit upset, right? She wanted the president's son all to herself. Jin-young greeted her, and she said she thought Taeseok was going to come alone. Our boy said it was a surprise to him too. He thought someone would come with her. At the restaurant with the food already on the table, everyone was looking at Taeseok, who had a strange expression. He couldn't quite figure out what she was thinking, and his friend made a comment to lighten the mood, saying it was an honor to be with her at the table. She said she felt honored too. It was just sad that she couldn't buy something even better for them. Confused, Jin-young asked what was wrong. She said that the two of them being first and third place was incredible. Our boy said it was incredible, but that she was also impressive for being in second place. However, she just glanced at him and returned to eating with a blank expression. She then said she would explain the reason for this meal. She said everyone already knew about his group and the 5 children, who always got good grades. Even though no one talked much about it, everyone knew. A guy who strangely memorized all of Elsung's gymnastics, as well as aced the first test. Not only that, but he also ensured that 5 others succeeded as well. And because of that, the senior from Team C got very angry. And because he didn't share tips about the gymnastics, everyone lost 0.25 points. And of course, the leader was replaced. He said it was sad to hear that, and she said it was okay since she received the position of leader. Jin-young then asked what her true intention was today. Was it to gather more information on the competitors or to remove obstacles to get into the strategic planning office? She said she had nothing to hide, so she would say it outright. She wanted to meet the person who dared to steal her first place, and also get to know his 5 brothers. And when she heard about Taeseok's incident, it made her angry, and she thought she wanted to get to know these people better. She said she was indeed aiming to get into strategic planning and asked about them. Jin-young confirms that he's also interested, and our boy says he hasn't decided yet. He's just doing his best every day. She says that's disappointing since doing your best is what everyone does. She asks where else someone like him would go if not into strategic planning. She mentioned that he should consider it since he didn't know much about those 5 kids of his. But there was a way to ensure he'd stay in the top 5. He says he doesn't know how that would be possible, but asks if it wouldn't be better for her to choose someone from Team C. But Jin-young covers his mouth and says the boy is lying. On the way there, he asked if he was also going, and that also indicates that he intends to. She says it's a relief to hear that he's not completely lost, at least, because if that were the case, the meeting that day would have been unnecessary. Man, this idea of the strategic office is self-serving. Calm down, girl. Our boy asks if it's guaranteed that the top 5 will go there, and she says yes. Jin-young mentions that with this girl and the 5 in his group, that makes 6, so someone would be left out. She says that's how life is. They're competitors, and not everyone will succeed. She asks what they think about a negotiation. Back in college, she was a cheerleader, which gave her an advantage in group events. That's when our boy discovers that there will be some calisthenics events involving large groups of people. In total, you could earn up to 150 points, with 50 of those for being the group conductor. That's why she's confident she'll secure first place with the bonuses. And there was a way to make him the conductor for the men, which would also put him at the top. He wants to know what she gains from this, since if he becomes the men's conductor, she loses the chance to be in first place. The office lady takes a sip of her coffee and says she wants to be accepted into his study group. Our boy didn't expect that. That's when it dawns on him that the top 6 in the entire place are the people who study with him, except for her. Maybe she wanted to spy out his study group. Let's be honest, there are like 3 girls in there prettier than her, but I didn't say anything. Let's just leave it at that. What he's thinking is that he doesn't mind her joining, but it's up to the rest of the group. He says he'll ask the other members because it's not something he can decide on his own. She says she understands and will wait for his answer tomorrow. The scene shifts to the study group with him breaking the news. The girl on the right asks who wants to join, and he reveals that it's Siu Yanji. Immediately, the guys say they're obviously okay with her joining. Another girl agrees, saying that the goddess is in that place. The guy chimes in again, saying it's forbidden to refuse the smartest and most beautiful girl, and he wants to know if he needs to buy fried chicken to celebrate her arrival. Then he mentions that she's not joining for free since the condition is that he'll be the conductor for the mass games. Another girl says that's less important since it would be good to have her in the group, admitting she's jealous of her looks, but honestly, she's not sure. Now they're drawing all of them unattractively, probably to make us think the other girl is prettier. You slay artist. Everyone is excited, talking about buying fried chicken and drinks. Our boy realizes the reaction was much more positive than he expected. Later that same day at 10 p.m., our boy was explaining the material to everyone as usual with his hack. Then someone asks if they can come in. Of course it's her, now without her office outfit. She introduces herself even though everyone already knows her and says it's a pleasure to be part of the group. The guys are already offering help, asking if she wants something to eat and welcoming her. Meanwhile, our boy is just observing. Everyone there is interested in her now. Time flew by and a week passed. The girl asks if Jinyan is finished studying for the day. She says yes, but there was something more important. She thought Taesiuk was too incredible, and her friend asked why. She said that he was only explaining the absolutely necessary points. Usually, it's hard to understand everything in such a short time. She's sure it's impossible unless he has privileged information, which proves he's the president's son. Several days passed. The same thing happened again with Taesiuk in first place. He tells his friend Hyunsu that he's not even in the top 5, and he apologizes, saying he did his best. He tells him that he'll have to try harder since they're all in the same study group. The guy says that everyone there is a monster. His result is normal. Our boy just replies that he has to push himself more since there's nothing they do that he can't do, and walks away, saying that maybe next time he'll even steal first place. Yanji is just observing, noticing that not only does he get good grades, but he also maintains very good relationships. Maybe it's because he has an easygoing personality and good sense of humor. That's why that group likes the boy. Look how surrounded he is. What she finds strange is that the son of the wealthy family should have something odd about him. However, for her, this was fun. Fun how exactly? The scene shifts to someone making a PowerPoint about some company things. Of course, it's our foolish boy who's struggling. Jin Young says his presentation time is coming up and asks if he needs any help. Our boy says that unfortunately, this is something he has to do on his own, but he appreciates the offer. He's all confused, not sure what to write in a certain part. It wasn't easy and time was running out. But don't worry, the little system pops up. It appears right in front of him, saying there's something in the shop. He had earned 2 honorary points for staying in the top one for 2 consecutive weeks. He's curious and wants to know what items are available. The first ability is PowerPoint Master, and the second is Presentation Mastery. Easy mode, huh? Look at that foolish grin. He got exactly what he wanted. I like how it instantly cuts to him thanking everyone for attending. His friends jokingly ask if he's got some kind of business solo leveling system. Jinyan even says that he'll probably be first again, and that it's amazing how well he did on his first try. Our boy says he only thinks that because they're friends. Another guy goes up to give his presentation, and our boy mentions that he learned a lot on the construction site. He used to do physical exercises in front of over 600 workers and constantly had to argue and discuss construction matters. Sometimes it took multiple days just to get paid. That's why, a long time ago, he learned how to communicate and stay calm. However, for his friends who didn't go through anything like that, it was more difficult. He had just been lucky to have dealt with various people of different ages from a young age. The only thing making him insecure now is that he's standing out too much. Will he be able to perform the same way at work? But he's sure that soon everyone will get used to these things. The scene shifts to an auditorium. A bunch of people from the old universities that everyone attended are there, and our construction boy, of course, is all alone. Someone approaches and asks why he's alone. It's Minsung, who says that our boy should head back to his room since he doesn't belong to any university. Our boy says he's fine there. Minsung tells him not to worry since his previous education isn't everything. Our boy says he understands, but he can't help feeling that way. The poor boy was all down. Even the senior noticed that the boy was feeling low, so he told him to follow him. Outside, he mentions that the head of the Elsung group likes pools and saunas. That's why every building he constructs has one of these. He invites our boy to the sauna, which leaves him confused. Our boy says it's kind of weird. I think so too, but okay. Minsung asks what they would do during the 2-hour meeting. On the way, our boy mentions that he also went to one of these saunas on the construction site. Minsung says that's all because of the president's superstition. The scene shifts to the two of them bathing. Man, I'm starting to get scared of Minsung. He looks at our boy and says he has a nice physique. Taesiuk just says that he doesn't have a bad physique either. He explains that he's getting old, so he has to take care of his appearance. Because he works in the sales department, he has to go to various bars and things like that, so he has to take care of himself. He then tells Taziak that he's going to say something. He tells him to go to the sales department, saying he'll train him. Our boy, with a confused expression, asks why sales. Minsung says he knows that no one needs many connections to get into that place. All he would need is to be diligent and maintain good behavior. Our boy apologizes and says he still has to make his decision. He gets back into the water like a fool, mimicking the president by diving in. At that moment, the system window appears. Could it be that the president has one of these two? For the first time, he receives something really good. For being in first place, he gets a potion that can cure any illness, including his back pain. A while later, they're in the sauna sweating, and Minsung tells him to go to the sales department because he'll help with everything he needs, guaranteeing 100% success. Our boy says there's a reason he's hesitating, and the guy asks what it is. He then says that he's planning to join the strategic planning office. The senior asks if he's sure, and smiling, our boy says yes. Man, now they went for a cold shower. But wait, what kind of mess is this? Minsung tells him not to go to that department because the work there will destroy him. Everyone who works there got in through connections, so he would be isolated. Even though it's considered an incredible place, it won't take him far in life. But in the sales department, at least he'd be well rewarded for his efforts. He had to remember that the world wasn't fair, and he had experienced that here. Our boy says he'll take the advice to heart and asks how he knows all this. Minsung says that when he did the training, that was his goal too, but everything changed. During his training, he was in the top 4 and also received the chance to join that department. He asks if he knows that to get into that team, he'd have to test out all the jobs for an entire year. However, he failed in the final selection. They said the reason was that he didn't have a good educational background, just because he came from a lesser-known university. Our boy feels a bit disheartened hearing this from his senior and doesn't understand why he's advising him to go into sales. However, he could go into sales at any time, whereas the other opportunity might only come once. Mentally, he apologizes to the senior, but he was going to try to get into the strategic planning office. A little while later, a guy enters a room and asks another guy if he's joined the company. A second guy says he doesn't even know who this person is and asks how he knows who he is. This guy is the one who has the exact same name as our protagonist and is the son of the vice president, ranked 259. The guy with him introduces himself and says they met once at an international university. However, the second guy tells him to shut up and stop pretending he knows him and to stop saying unnecessary things. Besides, no one can know he's here now. The guy says he understood perfectly, it's just that he didn't expect to find him there. The deep web Taziak tells him to stop flattering him and asks if there's anything he can teach him. The guy says that if he wants, he has several answers to last year's questions. The kid says he already has those and asks if there's a cool place to hang out around there. The guy says there isn't, and the kid's expression changes, telling him to get lost. The guy apologizes, saying he doesn't know much about those things. The kid then tells him to hurry up and find something for him to drink. The guy just says he'll be right back. The deep web Taziak wonders why he has to go through this if he isn't going to get the president's position. But it was inevitable, since in the end his grandfather was going to hand the company over to his father, so it was never going to be his. That's when he remembers that maybe the guy who was talking to him was one of his father's friends. At that moment, the guy takes a look at the rankings and sees the name Kim Taziak. The guy gets all excited, thinking the vice president will love knowing his son is in first place. He immediately calls to tell him that his son is in first place for the second week. Of course, the father asks if it's really true. The guy next to him says that it seems like sharing privileged information really paid off. The father says that indeed his son is maturing and becoming a source of pride for the family. The father then asks about the president's condition. The guy says that unfortunately, he's in good health and will probably live another 10 years. The father is dismayed, wondering how that bastard can live so long. The guy next to him says that sometimes things change. Who knows if he's hiding the truth about his health? And the vice president says that might be the case. He needs to somehow secure the company's rights. The standing guy says that little by little, they're buying out the rest of the people to gain more and more allies. The scene shifts to some people asking Yanji if those flags are enough. She says yes and tells everyone to grab one. After that, they'll watch last year's video and start practicing. Excited, Taesiak tells everyone to do their best. The group says of course they will, and together they'll succeed. With that, the practices for the mass games began. Man, they're learning to dance K-pop for the company. Our boy's legs are hurting, but where's the back pain now, huh? That one's gone. Everyone kept practicing and watching our boy on stage. The announcement was made that the mass games would begin. All of Taesiak's friends were supporting him and giving their best. Everyone had to grab a flag of each color, and the final practices began. But of course, there was bound to be a little problem. One of the guys from our boys group goes up to the deep web Taesiak and tells him to put in some effort, but he just responds by asking who the hell the kid thinks he is. The poor guy knew he wasn't very good at this, so he decided to tell Taesiak. He informed him that the guy with the same name wasn't cooperating, and our boy said he'd go talk to him. Back he goes, getting involved in another mess. He introduced himself and asked if the guy had the same name, who confirmed he did. Our boy just asked if he was dissatisfied with something and if he could help with anything. The guy just told him to stop bothering him. Then our boy asks if he wants to be taken off the team. The guy is shocked. What do you mean? Our boy says he can leave him out of the team and say he got injured. That way he won't lose points. After all, they had plenty of people anyway. Excited, the deep web Taeseok asks if he'll take responsibility for that. With that, the mask game started a few days later. I thought it was going to be that day. Man, what kind of ridiculous outfit is this? I told you it was K-pop. Everyone was organized, ready to perform the choreography. And our boy was coordinating the men's group, shouting that it was for Elsun. He's turned into a coach, that rascal. Up there, a guy was recording with a camera that looks like a bazooka. One of the guys watching turns to the director and says that the atmosphere in that training group seems pretty good. Both conductors were doing very well. It was definitely worth paying attention to them. The camp director says it seems he liked Mr. Taeseok from Hyundai. His positions would be taken into consideration. The vice president asks if the kid's name is also Kim Taeseok. The real one is looking at his name in 257th place. He's been in the same spot for 3 weeks and wonders if that bastard does anything besides studying. He didn't want his father to know about something like this. And right at that moment, his phone rang. He wondered what was going on. The limits on his credit card had been significantly increased. He got emotional, wondering if his father was in a good mood. They then held an executive meeting to review the new employees, and the guy at the table mentioned that his grandson was in first place. The old man was shocked because he knew the boy was useless, and the other person said there was even a chance he could really end up in first place overall since he was 18 points ahead of everyone else. The grandfather already knew that for the boy to be in that position, something very dishonest must have been done. Another fool, one of those watching who I thought was the father but isn't, said that he was also there at the mass games and saw that Kim Taeseok was doing very well, coordinating everyone. The grandfather questioned if this was really true. He knew that this guy had no reason to lie, so he decided he would have to check the video. If Taeseok had really led everyone, it meant the boy had matured. With that, they turned off the lights and said they would play the videos. Everyone was watching closely. Yeonji appeared first, cheering everyone on. Then our boy started with his coaching speech. The guy next to him said it was truly incredible to have such a talented grandson. And there was our boy shouting in front of everyone. However, the father stood up startled, asking who that lunatic was because it wasn't his son. He knew it didn't make sense. How could that kid change so much overnight? And the grandfather was just watching from the corner. Even though he knew it wasn't his grandson, he seemed to recognize that boy. That's when he remembered our boy. Of course, it was from that day at the sauna, right? That day he wished the boy well and said he hoped he would achieve his dreams. And now he was smiling, saying that in the end the boy had joined Elsun. And although the people around were all praising the grandson, calling him amazing, the old man of course said no. The guy was confused, and the president said that wasn't his grandson, but it was someone he knew. He asked when the training camp would end, and the guy said next week. He said that maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to drop by. In the meeting room, the father was there, completely defeated. He called his friend and asked where he was. And before he could respond, he ordered him to bring his bastard son immediately. Meanwhile, at a luxurious bar nearby, the son was flaunting his credit card and his friends were talking about how his father had finally released more money. One of the guys asked if he was going to pay in installments and he said of course not. The guy swiped the card and said something was wrong. He told Taeseok that the card had been blocked and asked if he had another one. He said it wasn't possible because that card was his father's and told him to use another one. The guy swiped it again and said something was strange. However, this card had also been blocked and registered as lost. Confused, Taeseok said something was off. His father had just increased his limit. The guy asked if he had another card, and he stood there, all awkward, not knowing what to say. The guy warned him that if he didn't have a card or money, he would have to get to know the police. A little later, they were going on an excursion to explore parts of the city. It was worth 20 points, but those who didn't want to climb the mountain shouldn't participate. Minsung said the training was almost over and asked our boy how he felt. He said he was satisfied because it had been well worth it. The senior then commented that he had impressively stayed in first place until the end, while the girl nearby seemed either tired or angry. But the people in our boy's group were all smiles. He informed the group that the nighttime hike would be dangerous, so he told everyone to always move in pairs. With that, off they went on their nighttime adventure. Our boy looked back and saw that everyone seemed a bit exhausted. This nighttime hike wasn't so easy. It was a paved path. Or maybe it wasn't that easy as our boy was worn out. Minsung asked what was wrong because our boy looked exhausted. It seemed he still hadn't taken the potion and was suffering from back pain. The instructor noticed he already had painkillers and asked how long he had been taking them, suggesting that if that was the case, it might be better for him to quit. However, our boy said he didn't want to be disqualified, so he had no choice. He asked the senior to pretend he didn't know about it. The senior said that was fine, but asked if he could really continue. Our boy said he wasn't sure if he could, but he had to keep going since he was determined to reach the top. So he asked the guy to do him a favor and act like he didn't know anything. However, Minsung said it was madness and asked why he was pushing himself so hard. During the hike, our boy asked himself the same question. And of course, he told himself that if he wasn't going to push himself this far, he wouldn't have started in the first place. By the time dawn arrived, the painkillers were wearing off, but he wasn't going to give up, even though it hurt like hell. With that, he reached the top of the mountain and even took a picture. I thought there would be more drama, but we're already at the award ceremony. Of course, our fool was one of them. There he's with his friends and the oddball in the middle. Min-sung mentions that on this special occasion, the president himself would be presenting their awards. Then Kim Chang-mo starts walking onto the stage. Everyone claps like fools. Our boy is curious to see this person since he never appears in the media. The old man comes out, all smiles, greeting everyone. And our boy is immediately shocked. Of course, he remembers who the old man is. Our boy starts sweating nervously and his friend next to him notices. She thinks to herself that she is Yeonji, and that today she has returned to repay the favor the president did for her 10 years ago. At this moment, Min-sung announces that our boy will receive a certificate for his performance. The president asks him how he feels. He says he's very scared and can't believe it. The old man congratulates him and tells him to keep working hard. Obviously, the old man just wants to make more money. Our boy awkwardly thanks him. The president then tells Yeonji that she would have come in first if it were based on last year's standards. He encourages her to keep improving because the company needs more talents like her. She thanks him for his support. Apparently, he cured a heart condition she had. With that, she also receives her certificate. With that, they are dismissed and the training camp is officially completed. Now they just had to wait for the official results to know which department each of them would be assigned to. But for now, they had 5 days of vacation. During this time, they would receive a message indicating their department. However, our boy was thinking that there was still something he needed to do. In fact, he was thrilled because he was going to receive that potion that could cure anything. He ran out in a hurry. But look how clever the boy is. He wants to use the elixir on his mother, right? Even though he still had back pain, he decided that didn't matter. If she was cured, that was what really mattered. But when he checked the patient list, her name wasn't there. Just when he had the magical potion in hand. A few days earlier, the hospital specialist had told him that her illness had spread, and they could no longer treat her there. Hanwol asked how that was possible since they were one of the best in Korea. The doctor asked him to calm down and said that as a doctor, he should understand. Hanwol just asked if there was really no other way to treat it. The doctor replied that the best option for now was to preserve the quality of life she had. That was also her wish. In the room, the protagonist's mother told him he could go home because his sister was coming to pick her up, but he said no. He was going to take care of her from now on, and she didn't have to worry. At that moment, our boy opened the door. Hanwol looked startled, and his mother even more so since she hadn't seen her son in days. I thought she had already passed away, but there she was in front of our boy. He asked why she was being discharged from the hospital. She said she had already told the doctors that she wanted to go home. Our boy said she couldn't do that because her treatment wasn't finished. At that moment, she said she had something to explain. But our boy said he could handle it, and she didn't need to worry. And with that, he gave her a gentle hug. Then she cried, apologizing to him, right guys? A little while later, they were on their way back home. In the taxi, she asked Hanwol why he had asked them to come separately. He said he wanted to talk to her about something in private. He called her name Heejung, but then fell silent. And man, did he just propose to her. If I was surprised, imagine how she felt. She asked what he was talking about and told him to live his life. He said that this was the life he wanted because he regretted letting Hyejin stay with her, and he said he would have liked to have lived with her. But my man, now you're forcing this on her at this moment. He said he would stay by her side until one of them died. But honestly, that promise didn't sound very strong. She asked him to stop making things difficult. Back home, our boy arrived and wondered why no one was there yet. Then Hamwol appeared from the room and said she had gone to sleep because of the painkillers. They both fell silent. He got up and said he had to leave because he had some things to take care of but would be back. Our boy smiled and thanked him. Apparently, he still doesn't know that the guy proposed to his mother. He's waving goodbye all calm. But then Hanwol turns and calls out to him. With that confused look on his face, he asks what it is. He says not to worry. He'll take care of his mother, and if anything happens, just call him. With that, he closes the door. Our boy goes to the room where his mother is sleeping. Man, stop making that sad face and just use the magical potion already. But no, he stands there, saying his mother has been through so much. But here he goes, holding the colorful potion in his hand. He hoped that with this, she would be cured. However, strangely, the liquid wasn't coming out. He wondered what was happening. The troll system told him to get closer because it needed to be close to work. Only then did the potion activate. What a mess. I thought the system would say it could only be used on him. With that, a healing effect took place. That's how it should be, right? The little system solving all of our boy's problems. He wondered why the rest of the liquid wasn't being used. That's when the system informed him that he had already used the necessary amount. He was confused, not understanding anything, this fool, and the system told him to use the rest to heal his back. Our boy started wondering why it seemed like the system knew he would use it on his mother first and then on himself. The next morning, she got up feeling strange. Why wasn't she in any pain? It was like some kind of inexplicable miracle. And our boy was all smiles, right? That sneaky worker, a system king. He didn't know who this person was, but he wanted to thank them. A little later, Hanwol arrived and asked if she was really feeling well and if she wanted to walk down the stairs. She said she woke up feeling strong and was actually able to walk on her own. However, she asked if by chance she wasn't in a dream and would soon wake up. Hanwol said that first, They should talk to the doctor to find out what happened. Obviously, the tests confirmed that the entire disease had disappeared. As much as they found it unbelievable, there was no denying the results. Hanwoo, being a doctor, kept insisting because he wanted a better explanation. But in the end, everyone had to accept that it was beyond understanding. He said that while miracles couldn't be ruled out, they would need to keep an eye on things. A few days passed, and they adapted to their new life. Our boy received the message saying he had passed the first stage of the strategic planning office selection. Man, for the love of God, when is this guy finally going to get a job? It's been 30 chapters already. One of them was complaining that he only received 2.2 million instead of 3. Jin Young explained that while they were still in training, they only received 80% of their salary. Someone asked the guy with the red tie if his name was Dong Hoon. It's that foolish friend of our protagonist who introduced himself as Kim Soo. They're all talking about how they're all 26 years old. However, Dong Hoon says he's 28 because he studied in a foreign country. They're greeting each other when the guy arrives. He asks if they all registered for strategic planning, and they respond that they did. The guy says they don't have much time and quickly tells everyone to go to the conference room. He welcomes everyone. There he informs them that they can only really become part of this group after 3 years in the company. After this period, they will decide which of the 5 will actually continue. Jin Young asks what they will be doing for the next 2 to 3 years then. The guy seems to ignore him and says that strategic planning is called the flower of Elsum. He asks what happens when a plant doesn't produce flowers. Jin Young says that obviously it doesn't reproduce. The guy says that's the case, and that's how some plants die. That's why a company needs to keep growing for the future, since one that's declining won't survive in the international market. That's why all of them will have to become the flowers of the company. They can't be taught how to become a flower, so they will have to learn on their own. He removes the cap from his pen and says there are the names of some departments there, and that's how they'll decide where they'll work. Taeseok is confused, thinking it's all going to be random. His poor friend ends up in life insurance. Must be boring as hell. Jin Young goes to quality control for electronics, probably watching TV all day. Dong Hoon ends up in HR, which sounds boring as well. Yeonju goes to the customer and home appliance sales department. Our boy is about to read which department he's going to be part of, but the guy says he doesn't need to say it since there's only one left, so he knows where he's going. In 2 months, they would receive an evaluation from each department to assess their skills. The fool asks what happens after that, and the guy responds that he'll move to another department. The scene shifts to a few days later. Now our boy is taking the bus, right? His life has changed. Or not, because a car appears. It's Hamwool, who says he'll take him to a closer station. He asks if he already has the number for the service room, and our boy says yes. Apparently, our boy is going to live with Hanwoo and tells him not to worry and to only leave when he gets married. Our boy thanks him, saying it's nice to have a place in Seoul. He then says it's been a while since he complained about his back and asks how it's doing. Our boy laughs, ready to talk about it. We see a flashback to the moment his mother woke up and asked if it was a miracle. Our boy was happy and jokingly asked if she wanted to take the LGBT potion too. The system told him to use that darn potion on his back, and luckily he listened and thought he might mess around and keep it for later. Obviously, he then felt a warm sensation in his back, but there he was all glowing, saying the pain suddenly disappeared too. However, just then, the door started to open with his mother shouting. The reverse system told him to hide the elixir. She then opened the door and asked what he was doing there. Back in the present, Hemwell tells him that if he needs any painkillers, just send a message. However, ideally, he should inform his mother soon and get surgery. Our boy says he understands and will go to the hospital soon for an examination. At the company, we see Minsung pacing back and forth until he notices a little piece of paper and goes to check it out. He sees Taesek's name there and gets all excited. He's curious to know if the boy decided to go there because of the strategic planning or something else. Just then, the manager walks by and he calls out to him. He informs him that there's a boy named Taeseok who will start working, so he's going to teach him. The manager says that every time he takes someone under his wing, he ends up selling less and not earning as much. Minsung replies that it's fine because in return they get a better employee. The manager responds that if that's what he wants to do, he's free to do so, and mentions that the boy seems to be at the coffee machine downstairs because he forgot his ID badge. Minsung says that's strange. It's not like him to do something like that. When he gets there, he asks, "Who are you?" Oh boy, look at the 5th Taeseok he's met, who says he's a new employee. As soon as he sees Minsung, he recognizes him and asks if he wasn't the one responsible for getting likes on that video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.